I'm about to call the meeting to order. Someone just logged in as NBC5, and although that is a Thanks, Chris. Okay, sorry, technical difficulties. So before we get started, NBC5 is on, has just logged in, and we need a name to go with that, please. Is there anyone paying attention from NBC5?
Says I can't allow the person. Oh, they'll turn them.
Andrea,
Yes.
if they're just identified as
You are totally cutting out.
excellent.
I don't know how to minimize this.
Just click
on the tiles.
Yeah, just click somewhere else.
They could actually, if they want, type their name into the chat section and I could quickly grab it from there.
Okay, so NBC5, if you can hear me, if you could please identify yourself by typing your name in the chat.
And Sonia, do you have a sign-in sheet this evening?
We do. We do have a sign-in sheet going.
Wonderful. And who will be sending that to me?
We will ask Chris Parker to send that to you.
Thank you.
Sure. So NBC5, can you hear me? Can we kick NBC5 off the call? If they don't,
I think that's press to do that. I don't think you actually need it in general. Yeah, I don't think that's a statute thing.
To identify yourself for a meeting?
Yeah, you don't, unless they're speaking, then I don't think you have to. I know we don't take names unless somebody speaks.
I'm going to defer to Andrea. Andrea, do we need a name?
Well, I know when we were doing the virtual meetings, it was a state requirement that anyone in attendance, we had to have their names. And we've always been told that we need to have the names of the people who were in attendance physically at the location also. But, you know, NBC5 is probably close enough. We know who it is. It's not just a generic thing. We could probably go with that.
And we're making an assumption that it actually is someone named NBC5 and not just writing their name as NBC5. So,
Oh, it is. It is them. I guarantee it. They were already contacted me and told me they were attending.
okay. Well, hopefully if NBC5 pays attention and could identify themselves at some point in the chat, that would be helpful. All right, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. It is 6:04. And the first order of business is the pledge, and the flag is here. So for anyone who'd like to rise for the pledge, you have to actually use this flag, and I apologize, there's no other flag. It's here.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you. Next, we're going to have a mindfulness moment. I would encourage you to reflect on the reason that we're here, which is for our school and our children. And with that, I'm going to read the meeting norms, and I'm also going to read our board public comment guidelines. So the meeting norms for everybody in attendance, board members, staff members, administration, the community in person or virtually, these are the meeting norms. Keep the best interests of the school and children in mind while balancing the needs of the taxpayers. Make decisions based on clear information. Honor the board's decisions. Keep meetings short and on time. Stick to the agenda. Keep remarks short and to the point. Everyone gets a chance to talk before people take a second turn, and respect others and their ideas. And regarding public comment, for community members, thank you for your attendance at our board meeting. My fellow board members and I recognize the importance of hearing from you. As a reminder, comments from the public are not designed to be a discussion, but rather an opportunity for board members to listen to members of our community. Citizens have two options for sharing comments during this meeting, either during the public comment portion of the agenda for items that are not on the agenda, or during the public comment period of each agenda item. Each individual speaker is allotted 2 minutes. Please speak only when I recognize you. Please direct all comments to the board. You may either sign in on the speakers list for in-person meetings, which is right up here on this table, or submit the agenda items you wish to speak to using the chat feature if you're attending virtually. If you're not able to use the speakers list or the chat feature, you can simply raise your hand during the public comment portion of the agenda or the public comment period of the agenda item you wish to speak about and wait to be recognized. If you're unable to attend a board meeting, you may always submit written comments or questions to the board via our emails, which are listed on our BUUSD website. And I would, I appreciate that all of you are here. The other thing that I would remind you is that the board is not allowed to speak regarding individual students. So if you start to speak about an individual student, we can't talk about that in open session. So I would just caution you, and you will be asked to keep your comments general, we can't speak about individual students. Okay. Next, we're going to do additions or deletions with a motion to approve the agenda. And I would look for a motion to approve the agenda. Thank you, Sarah. And a second? Second, Tim. Thank you. Are there any additions or deletions? Yes, Terry.
I'm just wondering, I suspect there's a lot of folks that probably want to talk about the incident, which is included in this report. I wonder if it would make sense, since Chris is not here, to push this off to push his report off to the next meeting.
Well, we could certainly do that, but there may be other items that, I mean, we could push any questions that people may have regarding the superintendent's report, because obviously the superintendent isn't here. I'm trying to remember other items that may be, well, the other items that are in the superintendent's report include the Greater Schools Partnership. So if the rest of the board is okay with that, I'm fine with it, but I don't want to, what does the rest of the board feel? Tim, how do you feel?
I mean, his reports are of little value to me where this incident was involved. But, you know, if we want to push his report off so he can talk about it next time, that's fine.
I agree with that.
Okay. Alice?
That's fine.
All right, Chris?
That's fine.
And Giuliano?
That's okay by me.
Okay, so we will remove the superintendent's report. Sorry? Oh, sorry, Renee. Renee?
That's okay. Yes, that's fine.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we
Point of
will.
order. You did not ask for public comment, and this is an item on the agenda. I don't have a comment to make, but other people might.
Well, so I'm not really sure how we would handle public comment for additions or deletions with a motion to approve the agenda.
There might be people here to speak on it. Like I was planning on speaking. Okay, so,
On the agenda?
no, regarding this report, but that's, I mean, I can understand, it's fine.
I mean, under public comment, people can speak to any item. I mean, to any non-item. I mean, you can speak to anything under public.
So if Andrea has her hand raised, but to Chris's point, if we remove something from the agenda, you can then speak about it in public comment. Does that? Okay.
It may be that people wish to make the point of whether they wish to have the item removed from the agenda.
Let's ask you.
Andrea, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that if someone from the public wants to suggest an addition to the agenda, they could. It's up to the board to decide if they want to add anything to the agenda this evening or not.
Right.
So people can certainly make their suggestions and give their input, and then the board will vote on how they wish to proceed.
Right. So is there anyone who would like to make a public comment about additions or deletions with a motion to approve the agenda? Yes.
Just a point of clarity,
Yes.
because after these last two comments that just came about, I'm a little confused. If the superintendent's not here to get a report, does he have a written report that was going to be presented?
It's in our packet.
I don't have that back. Sorry about that. So if somebody wants to talk about the superintendent's report from the public, that packet information is already there, am I correct?
Yeah, this agenda was, and the packet was posted last Friday.
It's okay. I'm just trying to get some clarity. That's all.
Okay. Are there any other additions or deletions to approve the agenda? Andrea?
I would suggest that 6.3 be taken out of order after 7.1, because that policy includes the start time of your meetings and you're discussing possibly changing that. And then I was just going to note that under agenda item 8.4, the next finance committee meeting is going to be on August 9th. The July 21st meeting is canceled.
Okay. And I also, Renee, can you correct me if I'm wrong? Is the July 7th curriculum meeting also canceled?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So the next meeting for curriculum will be to be determined, because I don't have that date. I think it will be August.
Want me to look it up?
It'll be August 4th. Okay.
Do we have any items for executive session? August 9th is for the finance.
No. Okay, but yes, we can do that. So the changes to the agenda are remove the superintendent's report, which is 8.1, make date changes to finance committee, the next finance committee meeting, the next curriculum meeting, and we're going to take 6.3 out of order due to 7.1 also discussing start times under 7.1. We're also going to remove item number 12 because we have nothing for executive session. Are you okay with those amendments? Yeah. And who seconded? Tim, you're okay with those? Okay, thank you. All right, all those in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please signify by saying aye or give a thumbs up.
Aye.
And Renee
Aye.
and Giuliano?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right. Next, we're going to go to comments for items not on the agenda. And the first item is 4.1, which is public comment. And I would ask, as nicely as I possibly can, to please respect the 2 minutes because there are a lot of people here. And if everyone goes over their time, it would be unfortunate for other people not to be able to have time to speak. So thank you for being respectful of that guideline. So who would like to speak? Is there anyone on virtually who would like to speak under public comment for items not on the agenda?
Not at this time.
Okay, hearing none, is there anybody here in the room? Yes.
Hi, my name's Brian Judd, and I live in Berry City. I'm also ranked for state representative for Berry City, and most importantly, I'm an honorably discharged military veteran. And when I was here last month and I stood for the Pledge of Allegiance, sometimes I close my eyes when I say that pledge. And I didn't happen to notice at that time until it was over that one of your members, this woman right here,
Sarah Pregent.
Sarah Pregent, did not stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And there's two parts to the process of saying the Pledge of Allegiance. One is to stand, and one is to say the actual pledge. And this pledge is to the United States of America. That flag stands for the United States of America. There's at least 3 other veterans that are in here tonight, and I can't speak for them, but it's very disrespectful to me when I see somebody who's not standing to say that pledge. And somebody at some point decided that this was what was going to happen. And I hope it was a group decision that someone decided that you folks were going to say the Pledge of Allegiance at this school board meeting. And since you agreed to it, the least you can do is stand and show respect to everybody else in the room who's standing, and show respect to that flag that a lot of good men and women died for in battle. And I'd really appreciate that if you would consider it. And if you can't find that in your heart to go ahead and to go along with what everybody else is doing here, that maybe don't show up into the room until the pledge is already done. And that way you get to go ahead, stand by whatever reason you're not standing for it, and you don't disrespect everybody else. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yeah, yes?
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
So I'd like to speak about school safety and the safety in our community. I know that many of us are here to talk about that. I know that none of us are going to get any answers tonight. There's going to be no discussion. But I know that many members of the community are kind of upset with the way the schools have been handling some of the discipline. Personally, as a father of 4, the sweep it under the rug mentality that I have seen from the administration needs to stop, and we need to start dealing with things. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? Yep. Could you give us your name?
Stacy Hubble.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'd like to elaborate on that. My son was the student in Berry that was attacked. I understand you cannot talk individually students, but I am extremely concerned by the safety of the children of the community. The school did just that and swept it under the rug. These students that attacked my son and did what they did, this happened at dismissal. I called the school. I was told to call Berry City PD. Even though my son was bleeding down the road, not even down the road, he was on the bike path. It was not even 15 minutes from dismissal that he was attacked. For them to sweep it under the rug and say it's not their problem is a huge concern of safety for not just my children, but everyone's children. The school even instructs these children to get on that bike path. And there's no accountability being held by the school right now on this situation. They're saying that they did what they could, which is asinine to say the least. This has been brewing for over 2 months. So I'd like to know what the school board would think about addressing the safety of the students and the bullying issue and the sweeping of under the rug.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here for public comment? Yes, go ahead. Could you please give us, have you signed the?
Yeah.
Okay, could you give us your name?
My name is Jacob Forcier. I'm the student's uncle. And I also live at Green Acres, so like just down the hill. And the fact that I was 700 feet from this incident and like you guys try to like continuously put on the rug, you guys continue to make statements about people walking the bike path. Like my kids walk that bike path, my girlfriend walking that bike path. You guys don't have time or money to pay people to do it. So don't boast about to the public that you guys actually do it when the people who live right around here know that you guys aren't. And like the fact that you think that this, I mean, not a joke, but like this hush hush mentality like needs to totally end. Like there's no like community like resolution happening if people are like, not my problem, wiping their hands from the situation. Like just because you guys might not deliberately have anything to do with it or not, doesn't mean you guys shouldn't be a part of it and putting your hands in to make it a problem stop. I mean, for Christ's sakes, you look all around our nation and all you see is school shootings and bullying. Like it's a constant thing. And Vermont is like also known as like the pandemic of drugs. And like we have kids wandering the streets, young kids like doing crazy stuff. Like when is it time to say enough and start like taking some action and authority instead of letting our children run havoc and doing as they please with no consequences, mind you. I mean, if I did this 15 years ago when I was their age, I'd get my butt kicked, like by my dad. And I would also be forced to go to this person's house and make a face-to-face apology. And then I would still have to have consequences for the next 6 months to a year. I mean, like, come on, like the slap on the wrist, like that's a joke. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
I'd like 2 minutes.
Okay, hold on one second, please. We're doing public comment.
Oh, I'm gonna be public too. So go ahead.
The attack that happened on the bike path, horrible stuff. And about a month ago, a friend of mine kind of came up to me and told me that this stuff actually happened in the schools, specifically mostly Berry City. I have personally witnessed this stuff in Berry Town. I have a daughter who's getting bullied and continuously bullied. Talks with principals, say everything's fixed. A week later, shit still happened. Very unacceptable. I was looking after this incident, I'm looking online, I'm reading some comments. I read one comment from somebody, it's a city board member, that this is the reason that they pulled their kids out of school last year, because of all the violence in the school. And I said to myself, she's a sitting board member, sitting right there. And she pulled her kids out of school after she witnessed this chaos and this violence in school, but yet said nothing at a board level. To me, that's unacceptable. Highly unacceptable. Also, it's unacceptable as a secret meeting you guys had a few weeks ago. After you said you can't have a secret meeting with the superintendent, you still did it anyway. Now there's 2 city board members that are veteran members that should have damn well known better. And that's you, Sonia, and you, Sarah. So I think you guys need to explain yourselves to the community on what's really going on here, why so much inaction and just doing willy-nilly what you want.
I'd be happy to answer that.
That's okay. We're not going to answer public comment because these items are not on the agenda, but thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? I think Stacy, you were next.
I just want to thank Stacy for saying what she did about the situation. And I just want to say, I was here years ago speaking about a member student that had been bullied and threatened verbally, and nothing got done. It was the perpetrator's issue and problem, not the student that was being threatened. Fortunately, it didn't lead to any violence but students, scared her to death that this person might know where to live. She might run into them.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you? The folks online are saying they can't hear what you're saying, so I don't know if you can come a little closer, maybe. This is our monitor here of right here,
This
this
little thing on
tall pillar thing.
You can just come close.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I think that's fine. It's just right here. Thank you so
I don't know if I
much.
need to repeat myself or not. I was here to, just to recap for those who can hear me, I was here 3 years ago talking about a student that had been bullied and threatened by another student, and nothing's been done, obviously, because here we are 3 years later and someone's been beaten. Fortunately, the student didn't end up with any physical violence, but emotional trauma from being threatened and, you know, comments like, I hope you get hit by a bus. I believe this student actually threatened the school as well. And so now it's like, how do we know that student wouldn't have been someone who came in with a gun and shot the school up? We don't know that, but nothing was ever done about this student. So here we are 3 years later, still talking about the same problem. So I just wanted that on record that I feel like nothing has changed in 3 years. And something does need to change, but I don't know what the answer is, but something needs to happen. And all these people here tonight are here to say the same thing and back that up. And I appreciate Stacy's comments as well. And feel for her and her family. All right. That's it.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Mr. Schobert?
My son just finished working with AmeriCorps at a school in Newark. And they had problems with students who were threatening teachers, threatening other students. And that led to a lot of these AmeriCorps volunteers leaving early. And I think we may need to ask ourselves, is this part of the reason why we have so many staff leaving at this point? The other thing I'd like to address is during, I believe it was the last school board meeting, one thing that was mentioned was that a concern over the different committees and how there were people who were overstepping their bounds. And the one example that was given was someone from, I believe, the finance committee asked for years of finance records. Well, that is actually the purview of the board, to get the information from the school that you need in order to make sure that the school is running properly. The other thing I think we need to recognize is that if the administration is not doing its job in protecting our students, we recently got rid of a superintendent because he was not doing his job. And so I think that that's something that, I'm not saying that we necessarily need to do it in this case, but I think that's something that the board needs to seriously look at if things like this continue to happen.
Okay, thank you. Tim, you said you wanted to speak.
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Michael,
Michael, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I wanted to talk about the,
You need to come closer because we won't, the people online won't be
you
able to
guys
see.
can't hear me?
I'm so
Pretty
glad you're
loud.
raising your hand now online. Just so you know.
I can be obnoxious too. You guys can hear me, right?
Can you if you can't hear Michael Bluton online, can you put something in the chat, please? I guess they can hear you, Michael.
Yeah, I figured that. So, you know, listening to the folks here talk about the issues, and you know that I sent you guys all an email. I hope that you consider putting that on the agenda to discuss the policies, because to me, it doesn't feel like the policies are working. These are the type of people that were reaching out to me and telling me that there were problems. Now, I've never met Stacy before. She was not one of the people. But the fact is that she was one of the people that were experiencing this problem. And I highly recommend that you put it on. I know that I was having a conversation with Sarah online, and she had mentioned that a couple of years ago, you may have changed your policies to more of a restorative justice policy. And there might be something, if it's not working, then it should be fixed, right? We talk about, and they hear, okay.
Yeah, just.
You know, we talk about if it's not broke, don't fix it. But in this case, it feels broken, right? and talking about conversations, I was having another conversation with a board member. And they reached out, I was talking to them about, people reaching out to them. I will say that the public comment, and you know, I've criticized the public comment multiple times. I think one of the reasons why people don't reach out, and I don't know how many of you get a lot of people reaching out to you, but I think one of the reasons why people feel uncomfortable about reaching out is this process right here does not feel very engaging. I will say something and then look at the thank you for your comment, which I understand your position on it, but from an end user point of view, it feels really uncomfortable and it feels very dismissive. And I just want to let you know, if you guys came to city council, and I always bring it back there, but if you guys came to city council and brought something up, you would certainly get like some sort of dialogue. And I think that, and I know my time is up, I apologize, but I think that is something that you may want to consider, at least having, maybe as a future agenda item to discuss as a listening session or whatever. But I'll open my finger. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? So Jeff, Flo, we've already done online, but since I'm not sure you were here, I will allow you. You can have 2 minutes to speak. This is the public comment portion.
I won't need 2 minutes. I heard the mother of the assaulted child speak. I wondered if you were going to address any of her concerns.
Well, as I read and as I have reiterated every time, this part of the agenda is public comment for items not on the agenda, which means we're not going to discuss items that are not on the agenda because they're not on the agenda. And
so when do you?
So if we feel like this is something that needs to be added to a future agenda, we can add it to a future agenda. But I think you can recognize and appreciate that we have a set agenda and we have already approved the agenda. And so this is the reason why we don't get into a dialogue.
Madam Chair, with due respect, I have been in front of your board many times over the last several months. I've asked several questions. Never once have I gotten a real answer. I've listened intently to residents from both the city and the town come before your board, ask questions, and never get answers. This is a very pressing matter this mother brings to you, and you folks have dismissed her. You're not even going to respond to her. I find that very disrespectful as a taxpayer. Thank you for my 2 minutes.
You're welcome. Thank you. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak?
I'm just gonna add one piece because I know I didn't go over my 2 minutes.
So I'm sorry.
Well,
If you would
I'm gonna
like,
say it anyway,
if
and then
you
I'll
would
just
like,
leave, but
if
it's
you
all
would
good.
like to have a
asked for
conversation.
this to be on the agenda.
So the agenda was set last Friday.
Yeah, and the assault happened before then.
So the agenda is decided by me and the superintendent.
So you're the one who decided it wasn't worth the time.
I didn't actually,
Yeah.
I didn't get a request from you. Did you email me?
The superintendent
Okay.
decided it wasn't.
So
worth
are
the
you
time.
leaving now?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak for public comment?
Yes, I would, be Preston.
Okay.
I also agree with Mr. Judd as far as not standing to salute the flag. That, I've done it ever since first grade, and you show the teachers respect in classrooms. You don't take advantage of a teacher, and that, these people that come here on their time to express their feelings to you, the school board in general. And just like she said, it falls upon deaf ears. And at the least they should be able to get a comment from the board or the Madam Chair. So that, that's my say.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment?
We have, we have Janelle Starr online.
Okay. Janelle, you can go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'm fairly new to the community. I've only been to a couple of these meetings. My question was directly like, how do we get something on the agenda? And is it like, basically, if we send an email to the superintendent or to you, does that guarantee that it makes it onto the agenda at some point, even if it's not like the next meeting? Or if you could just clarify that for me, because there is something that I wanted to add to the agenda, but like you said, it had been preset. So I just want to know like how to add something for the future.
To be clear, the agenda is set by the superintendent and I. It is not set trying to, it is set basically trying to understand what do we have information for? What are we prepared to discuss? Who will be able to be present? What is in the purview of the board to be heard? Some things are not under our authority. They are under the purview of the business manager, the HR director, the principals at the schools. So some things should not come to the board.
Thank you. That actually does clarify for me. So does the board need to approve an agenda item or discussion on the reestablishment of a PTA?
No, that you should contact your principal about that.
Okay, because my knowledge is that I've spoke to several people about this already that are in the school system, and my understanding is there is actually no PTA currently active.
Okay, so this is exactly why we don't get into back and forth, because now our board is talking about the PTA, which really isn't our purview. So I would recommend that you send an email to the principal of the school that you are that your students go to.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to make sure that, you know, it wasn't something I had to get on the agenda for you guys. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment? Yes.
Okay. So in 2019, my daughter moved here from Websterville. And I was shocked and amazed at the chaos and stupidity in the classroom. So Hennessy and I began this open sort of back and forth about what was going on, which culminated in my daughter standing before the school board right here and announcing that she was an 8th grade dropout because of the inaction of the school board and the inability of the school to get itself together. That's 2019. 2019. Are we insane? Now, our superintendent would love to tell us that these things take time when we're working on it. But I will tell you, a strict code of how things are to be run here would fix that almost immediately. Immediately. It is not fair for children and taxpayers to come to school to sit in a chaotic classroom while there's chaos and there's no learning to be had. If 2 kids out of 10 are there to learn and 8 are not, why are the 8 disrupting the 2? We have to stop this stupidity for the sake of our children. I have said this over and over and over since I joined this board. What do I think should happen to these children? I have no idea. But if they're not here to learn, let's put them someplace where they need to be. But the children who committed this crime, a long time in juvenile detention or whatever prison it is, would suit them well. This is not appropriate. And we should be just as concerned about that bike path as we should be concerned what Johnny is eating on Sunday and what Johnny's mom said to him on Saturday night. None of that is any of our business. None of it. I will agree, the bike path is not our business. It's city. The problem is we've taken all this other crap, it's not our business, and then we want to be involved with it. Well, if we want to be involved, it's just like Shaw. If you want to have 30 registers at the front counter, then put somebody at the damn register or get rid of the registers. If we can't manage the school, then let's close it. Go somewhere else. That's it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment? Sarah.
So I'd like to thank you all for the shout outs. You really made the beginning of this meeting quite interesting. In reference to you, Mr. Judd, you may not remember, but I stood up for you at the city council meeting in November in getting that flag raised. You made very different comments about me after that. And you are correct in saying you don't know the reasons that I stood for the pledge in this situation. You were not here for the discussion when it was reintroduced to the agenda.
So I respect your comments. I ask that you respect them as well. And Mr. Howard has left, so I will not directly address him, but whoever screenshotted my comments to him, since I had to block him for egregious harassment, would be best served in resending those, because I never mentioned any violence in my comments online. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Hearing no other public comment, we're going to move on to, I'm sorry, no, everybody gets one chance to speak. Okay.
I wanted to know for the record how we get bullying on the agenda for this Stacy couple.
Okay. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is student voice. Are there any students here who would like to speak? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to our meeting minutes. Item 5 is the consent agenda, and I will look for a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from June 9th, please.
So moved.
Second.
First by Chris, second by Tim. Any questions or discussion?
Do we have a solid end time for that?
Yes.
Yes, so I, as the board clerk, somehow didn't send those notes to Andrea last week. So when I was reviewing the packet for today, I went back in my sent email box and said, where's that email? I know I sent her. Well, there was no email. So I made a mistake. And so the end there where it says the motions for when we exited executive session and when we adjourned, I sent those to Andrea in an email today. So that information has been shared.
Do you have them?
I have it in my email box.
Because
yes.
if we
Do you want me to
can
just say it.
Yeah, if we can just add them now, we can amend these and then approve them and not
Yep.
have to wait and approve them at the next meeting.
Okay. So we motioned to exit executive session at 10:09. The first was by Sarah Pregen and second was by Terry Reel, unanimous vote. And then we made a motion to adjourn at 10:10 p.m. First by Alice and second by Sarah, and that was also a unanimous vote.
Oops, I wrote that all wrong. Okay.
My apologies to Andrea for somehow missing to send that email to you.
Okay, so first and second are okay with the amendments?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so any other questions or comments? Thank you for that, pointing that out, Sarah. All right, hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, Renee and Giuliano?
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes are approved and we'll move on to current business. We have new hires and Carol, I'm hoping that you're going to present new hires to us.
I am, unfortunately, I only have two.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think they're good. So you had in your packet, there was one in the regular packet and then one in the addendum. And the one in the regular packet is Reed McCracken, and he is going to our SEED program as a social studies teacher. And you will see from his resume that he's coming to us from White River Valley High School, where he was a principal. So he spent many years as a principal and is excited to get back in our classroom in an alternative program, and we're excited to have him. And then the other one, this is one of these hard to fill special education positions. So this is a great hire to be talking about. Brendan Hickey is from Pennsylvania. He'll be moving up here, school psychologist. And I think that, you know what, I forgot on Reed McCracken, actually. I just wanted to mention that he does have an AON address.
Thank you.
So Brendan will be joining us as a school psychologist in Berrytown, and we are hoping to find him housing.
Okay. Can we take both of these new hires in one motion? Okay, so would someone like to make a motion?
I would be with these people with open arms.
Okay,
Second.
so, Sorry.
Second.
So Tim with the first to approve the hiring of the two candidates presented and Nancy with the second. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
On Reed McCracken, is that a new position or is that a replacement? Because there isn't any note of that nor salary listed.
I think the salary was left off because it's a little bit of a transfer shuffle. We had a teacher at C that's actually moving to Spalding, so he was there. The teacher at Spalding, I think it was, I looked it up just before I got here, and I think the salary was 55. So it is a replacement for a transfer.
So it is actually a replacement.
Well, it's
Sort
checked
of.
off, it's checked off as no, replacement no.
I think that's
Is that wrong?
because he moved earlier in the year.
Oh.
So and I think he's been doing double duty there, so.
Should we wait and get confirmation, get the accurate information for this?
Which piece?
For
About why he,
yeah, salary and if it is actually a replacement.
Well,
You're saying yes, and what's the saying no?
well, I'm saying that it's, is it replacing a full person as we normally would with a new hire? That's hard to describe because yes, there was an opening and this person's going into the opening. But the other person's going to Spalding. So I think that's why it says no.
Do you know what the openings were to and from?
The Spalding person, he was in the social studies, so we used for that, and then he went to Spalding social studies.
All right. But he's going to be at the C program.
Reed McCracken is going
Yes.
to be at the C program.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Just a comment. His salary is listed on the sheet under the foreign central office use only box. It's just up there towards the top instead of down on there. So the salary is listed
Where's that?
on the higher sheet. The second box down for central office use only, the second line all the
Oh,
way
yeah,
to the right.
73,480.
It's not usually there. It's usually at the bottom. So it's
Oh, the
just.
income is that, yes. They're talking about that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Took me a while to find it.
Are there any other questions? I didn't ask the public. I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
I just have a quick question. Is this physically a new hire or is it a actual person moving from one building to another?
No, so I think what Carol's trying to explain is there was someone in a position at C and then they left and they're part-time at C and part-time at Spalding. And now they're going to be full-time at Spalding. And so there's an open position at C. So this person is taking that open position at C.
So there's one new person coming in.
There's a new person coming into a position that is not a new position.
Yes.
And the person that was in the position is transferring to Spalding. Is that clear?
Thank you.
Is the
Yes.
Spalding position?
The Spalding position is not a new position.
Okay. That's,
And I apologize for being confusing, but this is part of the world that we live in. That we are trying to be very flexible and creative, so.
okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I was just curious how many more professional positions are still open.
It's a good question. I think it was in the superintendent's report. I think it was 27, 23.
Yeah, I have. If you give me a minute to get to my.
So I'm going to let you do that and we're going to, if there's no other questions, I would ask that all of the, all those in favor of approving these two new hires, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? I'm sorry, Giuliano and Renee?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so those two new hires are approved. Carol, do you have our,
I do, and please keep in mind that the postings come on and off, so they sometimes don't match up to the numbers that I'm giving you because we are taking, hopefully we're taking them off more often. But so we've had some people that are on Chris's calendar for interviews. So 21 spots we still have open at a professional level. So those are 13 regular ed and 8 special ed. This is at all 3 schools? Yes. All 4 schools, that includes, excuse me, thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Was that 40 similar openings we had a month or so ago? Now being reduced down to 20 some ones? Is that to be better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for that information. Next is 6.2, which is the annual designation of truant officers, and this is an action item. And in your packet is the statute which directs us to appoint 1 or more truant officers and record their appointments with the clerk of the school district on or before July 3rd, which is why this is coming to us today. The superintendent has made recommendation for Berry City Elementary and Middle School truant officer for this coming school year to be Brenda Waterhouse, for Berrytown Middle and Elementary School to be Theodore Mills, and for Spalding High School to be Mary Goodrich Miller. And so is there anyone in the public who would like to make a public comment on this agenda item? Hearing none, is there any? Yes, sir.
Could you explain what it is?
The truant officer is the person that is supposed to help with students who are having attendance issues, if I'm correct.
It would also be the ones that would check. It might end up in court if there's a bad truancy on a student.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Audio did not catch that.
Oh, for Jody. Jody said that, Jody Emerson answered the question and said that truant officers may go to the home. They may go to court if there's a filing of truancy. Or something else that you said that I missed. No, that's about the gist of it.
Were the truant officers really busy during the pandemic?
Well, I think there was probably some leeway during COVID for the simple fact that it was school was part-time, school was remote, and I think there was probably some more leniency, is my guess.
I just ask one more question and clarify this. Do Berrytown Middle School Elementary, Berry City Elementary Middle School, and Spalding High School each have a truant officer?
Yep, I just named them. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes, sir.
There's no truant officer for the C building?
No, that's a good point. I suppose that would probably be
Falls under
Spalding High School, probably. Yeah. But that's a question that we can ask. I think it's a program. It's not considered its own school, so that may be why it's falling under that. Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, would someone like to make a motion to accept the superintendent recommendation for the BUUSD truant officers for the FY23 school year as presented?
So moved.
Alice with a first, Sarah with a second. Any other questions from the board? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Renee and Giuliano? Thank you. So any opposed? Okay, so that is passed and we will move on. We are going to skip.
Interrupt 1 second.
Yes.
We have someone with phone number ending in 88 who just joined. Can you identify yourself, please? Either by saying your name out loud or putting it in the chat.
Yeah, hi, this is Brandon Vest.
Brandon Best.
Oh, thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item is 6.3, but we're going to take that out of order so we can take it after 7.1. So we will move on to a few policy issues, and the first one is 6.4, rescind field trips. The next, these two items are rescinding policies, and I'm going to let Chris give us the rundown on these.
Sure, thanks. So this is 6.4 is D30, which is a field trips policy. This policy was removed by the VSBA in July of 2020, actually. It's been in the parking lot for the policy committee for quite a long time, mostly through COVID because no one was taking field trips. And so there was other more pressing business to attend to. And if you'll note in your packet, the majority of this policy is an implementation section, which is procedural, basically school to school around how each school would handle field trips. The other thing is that under the policy, the one sentence of the policy says that the BUUSD endorses the use of field trips as extensions of classroom experiences. Naming what is and is not an extension of a classroom experience is actually quite vague, and there's been a lot of discussion about who's determining what is a adequate extension of a classroom experience. So from the policy committee work, our recommendation is to rescind this policy and for the procedures of each individual school to list their information there of how they handle field trips and for what reasons and what kind of field trips are acceptable at each school.
Okay, thank you so much. Is there anyone virtually who would like to make a comment about this particular agenda item? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone in person who would like to make a comment or ask a question? Yes.
We feel that rescinding this policy helps create better field trips or doesn't do anything at all.
Okay.
Does it create better field trips?
Like better quality, and I guess I'm not sure why you would rescind the policy.
Because it leaves up to each school's administration what is an appropriate field trip at each level. And so with the majority of the policy being procedural anyway, literally like the section that says policy is it's one sentence. So it's not much of a policy, it's really procedures. And so the administrators of the different schools, they handle the procedures. And so in their student handbooks, they would have their procedures about field trips. So, I mean, one could say perhaps that leads to a better quality that's more developmentally appropriate at each level because each building is determining what's an appropriate field trip for each level of kid.
Are there any? Yes, sir.
I just have one quick question, Chris.
Yeah.
Does the board still approve those field trips once the administration has vetted? Because that's the way it used to be.
As far as I know, the board is not approving field trips.
Okay, so do we have a motion on the floor?
I don't think a motion has been made yet.
Can we make a, would someone like to make a motion? Thank you, Andrea. Would someone like to make a motion to rescind D30 field trips?
So moved.
Alice, and a second? Second by Tim. Any questions, discussion from the board?
I'd just like to make note that by rescinding this, it's not an indication that the school board does not care about field trips. We are very conscious of the fact that field trips are extremely important. And in talking with some parents and community members, that they want those to continue because they are options for all students to learn, to see the world, and we as the board support that.
Thank you, Alice.
Okay, thank you, Alice. Anyone else on the board? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of rescinding D30, please signify by saying aye.
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 And Renee and Juliana?
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed? All right, the policy is rescinded. And next is 6.5, which is rescind budgeting F30. And I believe this is due to F20 being adopted earlier this year. Chris, would you like to tell us about this?
Correct. Yep, so F20, which is fiscal management and general financial accountability, was adopted by the board on May 12th, so just last month. F30, this policy, which is budgeting, was removed by the VSBA actually last month also. And one thing to note, I think some of you know, and some people on the policy committee, we've talked about not getting information from the VSBA about why changes are happening. And in their most recent weekly updates, they're addressing that. And so they are letting us know that policies are being removed as changes in statutes or laws or relevant situations like the COVID pandemic. And are being adjusted because of that. So with the update to the bidding laws and the F20 policy, that has subsequently removed the budgeting policy from the VSBA. So that's the reason why there, because there's overlap there about financial accountability, which is covered in F20. So the recommendation from the policy committee is to rescind this policy as F20 is now in place.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment or questions from our virtual attendees?
No.
Anybody in person have any questions or comments? Yes.
When did the policy committee make the recommendation?
To remove this
Yes.
Policy. Well, it was, I couldn't say the exact date. I could go back in our policy index, which has the notes of each individual policy of when we discuss each thing. But as F20 was just adopted in May, so we were working on these types of policies in March and April, and then also, I don't know if you recall that there was a lot of back and forth with F20 around the change in the bidding law, so that came to the board and back to the committee several times. So it wasn't just like one meeting, it was several discussions of how to handle F20, sort of with F30 in the wings of that will remain until and unless F20 goes into
Then
place.
you said that they made a recommendation to rescind the policy, and I'm just wondering what made the recommendation, and since we haven't had a policy meeting since April, why were
No,
they?
we just had one in May. We just missed the June, that's all.
Any other questions?
Yes, could you explain the F1? Oh, sorry.
Any other questions from the public? Sorry, I wasn't very clear.
That's okay.
No, I think that Janelle just has her hand still up, but
Yeah,
thank you, Josh.
previous.
My apologies.
It's okay. All right, so I would look for a motion to rescind this policy, F30. Sarah with a first and a second.
I'll second it.
Second by Alice, and then questions. Go ahead.
Yes, could you explain F20 again? I think you did.
So F20 is the policy that we had a lot of discussion about those thresholds with the bidding law as the bidding law changed from the 15,000 to the 40,000. So it was around those numbers that had the policy sort of going back and forth from board to committee until we got it right, that in a place that people felt comfortable with approving. So that was just last month in May.
Okay, so that one replaces this.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of rescinding F30, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Renee and Giuliano?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, hearing none. The F30 is now rescinded, and we will move on to 6.6, which is the food service contract. And Lisa, I think you're gonna present.
So as an annual part of our renewal for our food service management company, we're required to submit an application to the child nutrition program. And that requires a copy of the minutes from a board meeting where the board has approved the renewal of the food service management contract. We're currently going into the year 4
of a 5-year contract with Lexington. So this is just, they're allowed to increase their, because we pay a per plate, our contract is based on per plate, they're allowed to increase their prices that we pay them based on the CPI. And the food service management or the child nutrition program lets us know every year the maximum that they can increase their prices, and that is 6.8%. And the other piece to this is they are increasing the C per plate prices, and that is based on the fact that when we entered into this contract, obviously we didn't have, C didn't have its own, they were renting a space, but the students were receiving their meals at Spalding High School. But with the new building, we have a commercial kitchen, and we were really eager to have them actually in the kitchen at C, preparing the food, giving options and variety, and even allowing students to have a partake in sort of the process. And so there's some programming as well. So this is starting over now.
Okay, and you need us to approve these rates as proposed?
Yeah, we need approval of the renewal of the contract with Lexington.
Okay. Okay. Is there anyone who is joining us online from the public who has a question regarding the food service contract approval? Okay, hearing none. Anybody in person? Yes.
So at a C school estimated revenue today of $200 on meals, why don't we just have our own school district in this and make the money ourselves?
Well, so that is an option. Some schools, districts do have self-operating food service program. I wouldn't recommend it. It's, there's a lot of work involved. That would mean that we would be hiring all of the supervision, the director, all of the staff. Having your own self-operating food service program is much more expensive. So as it is, we make money and we have earned profit on our food service. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Hold on. Tim Bolton.
Tricky.
Cloning yourself. Okay. I would look for a motion to approve the renewal of the contract with Lexington. Lexington Independence or Lexington?
Lexington Independence.
Okay. So move Sarah in a second.
I'll second.
Second from Chris. And are there any questions from the board? I'm going to start over here, Chris.
Thanks. I see that on the bottom it's talking about the C school breakfast and the C school lunch, with the proposed being higher for breakfast and lunch than at the other schools. And I'm wondering, is that only to do with what it talks about at the bottom with the new contract? And also when students have to go back to paying for meals, will that increase be passed on to them, or is that something that the district is picking up? That's a good question, and we haven't actually gotten to that point yet. Because I think it's obviously really important that equity for all students, both kids who are getting free lunch and kids who are paying for lunch, that everybody's paying for the same amount for breakfast and lunch. And as I said, we make a profit, so we actually have a fund balance of about $400,000 in our food service program. So there's conversations around, yes, we have free meals in FY23, and hopefully the legislature will be able to find the money to extend that beyond. If not, we would hopefully be able to
access some of the profits
Mhm.
to help support equity across schools.
Does that answer your question, Chris?
Yeah, just I think a proposed lunch of $4.50 for kids in school is kind of high. So just noted that, like, ooh, that doesn't
Right.
feel great to me.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you. Any other questions from the board? Sarah, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to, so on the right-hand side of this, I guess it's just a letter, it's talking about the reimbursement rates. These are the rates that we are receiving from the government and grant entities.
Yes.
So you can tell we're actually making money on each of these proposals. Okay. And just because these are the prices that they are setting in the event that students went back to paying for their own lunches.
No, these are the prices
That
that
we're being
the
charged.
district is
District's being
paying
charged.
Lexington to provide meals to all of us.
Okay, so if the school itself was charging individuals for these, we could actually set our own prices.
We do set our own prices.
So,
yes.
okay,
Mhm.
all right, thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay. Any other questions from the
I
board?
have a question.
Yeah.
With the fluctuations in the financial market and everything, are we guaranteed that this 6.8% is going to last for the year? Do they have any caveat that they can come back and ask for a renewal or a change in the middle of the year?
No, based on our contract, they can't come back. Okay. That's a lot. We're going into the 4th year of our 5-year contract. Next year, we'll be beginning the procurement process where we'll go out to bid for a new contract.
Any other questions from the board? Terry?
Have they indicated if the 6.8% matches their actual cost increase?
They definitely are having a hard time making ends meet, for sure.
So is their cost increase more or less than the 6.8%? Because that's the max amount, so they're just charging the max amount. So I assume maybe they have a shortfall, is that correct?
Yes,
They
that's
do.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're having a difficult time because of, food shortages and the costs of everything.
And I would echo what Chris Parker said about the prices at the C building. I don't think that they should be different than the regular building. I think they should be the same.
That the reason they're higher obviously is because they weren't part of our contract when we initiated it. So,
The ratio
Right,
of
so-
students to.
So they're trying to
food service
recoup
workers.
some funds, right? It's sort of because of unexpected. And I wonder if instead of listing it like this, like, oh, C school and breakfast is more, if it's like,
Yeah.
hey, BUUSD, we need a one-time like amount out of this profit, and then we just equalize it so then everybody's the same. It just looks strange to be
right.
separated out like that. Like
I mean, well,
they're
it does
some of our
cost
most
more
vulnerable
because we
kids,
weren't-
perhaps
Right,
arguably.
I understand
So
what you're saying.
yeah.
What would the annual impact to do that be? We're sitting on $400 fund balance. Can't we just adjust this and take it out of that balance? What would the impact be annually if we did that?
Yeah, we could adjust all of the,
Or at least the two C
Prices
buildings
that
match
they're
them together and then just take the difference out of the balance.
Yeah.
Any idea what that number would be? Ballpark?
So,
Can I make one more comment?
yes, of course.
So I've spent the better part of my day price shopping at Walmart. Sucks. But I will say that on average, Walmart, I'm not touting Walmart, is 40% less expensive than my provider, Cisco, right? Which I was shocked and amazed. But just imagine this, the price of gas has gone from what to 5. Food has done the same thing.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I will say that anybody asks for more money to serve food, I certainly get it.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
So my question is for what Terry and Chris are suggesting is if we approve the contract, are we approving these rates or are we just approving the contract
we're
and you can
approving
still?
the renewal of the contract.
Okay, and then you could potentially work with Lexington Independence to make sure that the prices are the same and use some of our fund balance to offset that increase that the C program is
Yes.
It sounds like that might still be
We
able
can
to
do that
happen.
or adjust all of the prices. So yes, we can make it more equitable, look more equitable. Paper.
Okay, well, then I think it's not even just looking equitable. It sounds like if we set it up to make it be more equitable, then when students have to pay for it and potentially there's no longer funding from the federal government or state, then we're not scrambling around to try to make sure it is equitable.
Right.
So we can hopefully set it up to be ready for that.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so there's a motion on the table to approve the renewal of the contract with Lexington Independence. Are there any further questions from the board?
Yes.
Yes.
So if we're approving the contract, this is not part of the contract, or it is? You're approving the renewal, so as part of our, application. Okay. So this is not part of it, this pricing is not? No. Okay. The application, is separate and above, from this, and they're requiring that our board minutes are included in that renewal. So we just need. Okay. And so what are we doing with this? It's information. Just for FYI. I share it every year as information. I think it's great. Thank you. Okay.
Okay. So we're on, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm talking to Paul behind you because he raised his hand, but we are in board discussion at this point. So you may need to talk to us after the fact.
Well, I may raise a financial question after you move on this.
Okay. Well, so I'm going to just ask for, we're going to call the question. All those in favor of approving the renewal of the contract with Lexington Independence, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Renee and Giuliano?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so the food service contract renewal has been approved. This is.
And then just also noting in the packet, all the summer meals and where those can be accessed for kids. I saw that posted, I think, on our social media account also. So
Yes.
obviously the more far and wide we can get that out there. I'm thrilled that there's 8 places that kids can go around here to get that
And I'd
stuff.
also like to shout out to Ashley Young, who is our assistant business manager. She puts a lot of time and effort into food service, and it's a huge undertaking, and she does it along with all the other things that she has to do. So appreciate it.
Paul, did you have a question or a comment?
No, it's just a question related to the $400,000. It's in a reserve account.
So I would ask that you maybe bring that up at your next finance meeting.
I was going to suggest that I would go that way if there was nobody here to
Yeah.
answer.
Well, because it's not on, that's sort of getting us down a rabbit hole, so maybe that could be further discussed at a
Well,
finance.
it was related to food service. I think you're right. Finance.
Okay. Thank you for pointing out summer meal service, delivery sites and schedule. Do you know how these sites are decided? Lisa?
So typically we reach out to the Aldrich Library, or sites reach out to us if it's a daycare or, a camp. So these are typically sites that we serve.
Okay. I just think it's interesting that we're serving the Montpelier. They must not have a food service program.
We've been doing that for years.
Yeah, but they just must not have their own food service program running in the summertime.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we vend all the meals to these sites, for breakfast.
I think Montpelier may, like at the schools, but not at the camp.
And maybe they just don't have the ability to do
Maybe
a
not.
larger number maybe or
Right,
something.
I'm not sure. It's a good
Again, this is
question.
another way that we bring revenue
Yeah.
to the program.
Yeah. Well, and if we're feeding hungry kids, then
Absolutely.
it doesn't really
It's all
matter where
good.
they are, right?
One other question, will we know numbers through the summer? I don't mean like each whatever, but like at the end of the summer, will we know how many meals got served at each location? And
Yeah.
okay, that'd be interesting,
Yeah,
I think, to
it'll
know.
be, I think it would be interesting, maybe, say like September or October, to do just a food service presentation.
Mhm,
Just to give everybody updates on where we're at and.
Yeah, maybe future agenda item.
Got it. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. Next is 6.7, which is the CBCC truck purchase. And I'm assuming that's why Jody is here. Jody, would you like to talk to us about this? Come on up so we can hear you.
So I would first like to say thank you, Barry, for hosting the Central Vermont Career Center for so many years and taking such good care of us. It's a little bittersweet this is the last board meeting where I have to ask this board for anything, although Alice will help me along the way for sure. So this year we ended up with quite a lot of money left over because we were unable to hire a school counselor, which was $75,000 of our budget. We didn't have as many subs as we normally have, where we usually have on the docket 3 permanent subs. We might have had 3 once for about a week. But most of the time we had 1 or 2, so that there was about 50,000 in savings there. And there was also additional savings in field trips where we had about 50,000 had been budgeted for that, and we still have about 30,000 left. So we were looking at what do we have, and in Perkins money, some extra Perkins money became available in, I'm going to say April. It was either March or April. And one of the things that we purchased with that Perkins money was a trailer and a bunch of toolboxes so that we have a kit for every program. Because one of the things that Perkins asked us to do is to make sure that we're visiting middle schools and doing outreach and helping kids learn some hands-on trade. And so there's a toolkit for every program. It's in a cargo trailer that we were thinking we could tow behind the bus, but our natural resources teacher advised against that. So it's hard to drive the bus, and the vans can't pull it. And so then we started thinking about, well, we might need a vehicle for this. We do have some funds available. And we decided to use the state procurement process because then you don't have to go out for bid. They've already done that wonderful work for us. And so I reached out to one of the people on that who could speak to any kind of work truck basically. And they said, here's what we have that you can have now. Otherwise, you're going to have to order and wait for a long time. So you have, I think, the details of the truck in front of you, and I'm hopeful that you can support it. Another use for us, I don't know if you saw our vans going back and forth through Barry, but the building trades crew the instructors would take all of the ladders and everything down in our vans to the Granite Museum to help work on those new classrooms down there, and then come all the way back and pick up the kids and bring them down. So it's a bunch of transporting back and forth where we can now use the truck and trailer for that purpose as well, and do some projects locally.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from the public regarding the CVCC truck purchase? Virtually? No. Anyone in person? Yes.
How much is the truck, first of all? I don't have that number.
About 40,000.
40,000.
Coming off the lot.
4360?
Yeah, it's right here.
Says 46,535.
It says grand total 48,600. Right on this price.
What about
As
the
the
fleet out of stock price?
As
Is
the
it the handwritten amount? Which is the 46,
Yes.
46,535.
And it's a gas vehicle, not electric. Yes.
So, so my question is,
Go ahead.
so my question is simply this. This is for moving forward. Although we do have a surplus right now to the CVC, up until we hit one more week, we're into the new year. This is a purchase that's going in for the next year in a new organization that's set up. shouldn't that be something that is moved into the budget line item?
We would be purchasing it tomorrow if you approve it.
Yeah, she's using surplus money for this year, from this year, money that's left over from this year.
I understand that.
Okay.
For what will be effectively a 1 week use as far as this district overarching governance is concerned. So I guess the question is, should we do that? Just a simple question. Alice,
Yes,
you're on
yes.
that board.
Yes, you should do that.
Alice says yes.
It's clean.
Our area representative.
Oh, it's using the money from this year, even though it's a very short period of time that we'll actually have possession of the vehicle. But we will have possession of the vehicle from now on. So this is the best time to buy it. This is when we have money and we have all the paperwork from the procurement office to have that truck in hand for this year.
Who has the possession of the vehicle?
Right now, it's still in fleet.
No, I think, I understand that. Who has the possession of the vehicle you're purchasing right now? Is it the overarching organization that we are at this point, or is it the new board that takes possession of that? Because we're using surpluses out of the year that's ending for something that's going to be used, and it's going to be part of your, is that going to be part of your physical assets for the
Yes.
So then,
CBCC?
correct.
I'm only trying to get clarity. I'm not trying to muddy
To
the
be clear, we're
waters.
talking about the surplus in this, the career center budget, not the.
I understand that. I am looking at the $280,000 as a surplus as we control about too. So I realize where that money is going to be coming from. I'm just trying to make sure that the track is equitable and fair to the existing ownerships that we have at the current time. I know we're going to have a new board, or it's already been elected.
The Career Center.
But the Career Center will have possession, taken out of the surplus funds that we have coming out of this year.
Yes.
And everybody's good with that.
Are there any other questions from the public?
So this is being, I think I'm following what you're saying, that
Don't count.
that this is being paid for by the current their BUUSD board, but it's actually going to be used by the Career Center. So isn't that kind of not a good use of BUUSD funds when it's not being used by the BUUSD?
So the BUUSD has a fund and the Center of Vermont Career Center has a fund, and they're two separate budgets, even though they're one district now. And CVCC's funding is completely different. It's a different funding formula. It is completely separate. All of their assets are accounted for separately. And so when CVCC moves into their school district on July 1, all of their equipment, their assets will become part of their new district.
But if we don't pay for this, then the money goes back to the taxpayers of Berry as opposed to.
No, actually,
Okay.
we go back to taxpayers across the entire 18 towns.
Okay.
There are
That's-
8 communities, and
That's, okay, that's what I was trying to understand.
I think I answered my own question. We have two choices.
I love
The
that.
first one is we send it back to all the taxpayers from all the different sending schools. That's step number one. Or number two, you buy down a material asset that you want to use for the new school. That's the two choices. I don't think there are any others, right?
Okay.
You buy it now or you buy it later.
Right.
I take back everything I said.
Okay, so are there any other questions from the public? Okay, so I would look for a motion from someone on the board, a board member, to approve the CVCC truck purchase.
So moved.
Oh, Alice for the first, and Renee, I'm gonna give you the second. Are there any questions from members of the board? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the CVCC truck purchase, please signify by saying aye. And those opposed, I'm sorry, Renee and Juliana?
Aye.
Thank you. And anyone opposed? Terry's opposed. Okay, Terry is opposed. The motion passes and CVCC is approved to purchase the truck. And I just want to say thank you for coming and thank you for all your work. And we will miss having you here, but we'll get your minutes and keep up with you, obviously, because we're still connected to you, but best of luck. And happy motoring, whoever said that. Okay. Next is old business. And this is where we're going to review board meeting start times. Excuse me. And Chris, I'm going to let you, you had made this original recommendation. So if you would like to just give a little brief presentation about why you'd like to reopen this discussion, then we can open it up for public comment and then the board can discuss.
Sure. So originally when we, this came up, we previously did start meeting at 5:30 and then we changed it to 6 o'clock. We had a bunch of discussion around the times on the agenda and how we did or did not stick to those times. Some meetings we do okay with that, and some meetings we go wildly off of that and are sometimes an hour sort of off the agenda, meeting late into the night until 10:30 sometimes. And so when we had the change and we said, okay, let's start meeting at 6 o'clock. We agreed to put the start time into the parking lot to address it after some time to sort of check in with ourselves to see how we're doing with sticking to an agenda and getting done with meetings on time or not. And so here we are out of the parking lot and back onto agenda to check in with ourselves and the public about how it's going and if we stick with it or change.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Are there any members of the community that are attending virtually that would like to have public comment? Or have any questions? Okay, is there anyone here in person? Yes?
I just want to say that I appreciate having the meetings here, or not just here, but having the meetings and be able to come in and express my views and concerns regardless of any further discussion. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks. Any other public comment? Yes?
I'm just going to simply say that whether you start 5:30, 6:30, whatever time you decide to start it, you're never guaranteed when the meeting's going to end. You might have certain things that just pop up, events that happen like tonight, which will protract things out. I remember sitting through meetings that sometimes go as late as 11:30, 11:45, and sometimes after. You have that. That just happens. Just the nature of boards. For a lot of us, it's difficult to get here early because we're trying to get home, get a meal in, and get here. So if we want to attend a meeting, it is inconvenient. The 6 o'clock made more sense. We started with the 5:30, and I gotta say it was on the original board when that happened, because we were having once a month meetings and those agendas were long, and we knew they were going to be long, and we hoped that 4 hours would do it. Sometimes it would take 5 hours, but that's why we started at 5:30, so that we could get out at 9:30, 10:30 at night, be reasonable about that, knowing that we have one meeting a month. But you're meeting twice a month right now, and there's no reason to change this. And it's been advertised for that, and most people show up, and hopefully you get the same sort of attendance that you've been getting at these meetings if you made it monthly. That's my opinion.
Okay, thanks. Yes?
I've been a member of the Berry City Diversity and Equity Committee. And when we first met, there was a discussion as to when we would start the meetings. And at the time, working for the Department of Labor, I was working until 6 o'clock. So an agreement was made that we would start the meetings at 6:15. Once our overtime ended and I was able to get out earlier, we adjusted the meeting time to 6 o'clock. Right now, we've changed the meeting time to 7 o'clock because there is someone who wishes to be on the committee who can't meet until 7 o'clock. So I think it's important, and I really appreciate the meeting times here being a later time so that can get home and then get ready and to come to the meeting. So I think it's important that to continue the meetings. The other thing is that there are people who might have businesses that are open until 6 o'clock, that if you had a meeting time later than 6 o'clock might be more able to attend in person. And I think that that's something that you want to look at in terms of the board, if there are people in that sort of category.
Okay, yes.
Can you guys hear me? So, yeah, I'm obviously someone that believes in the later time. You know, being on city council, 7 p.m. is actually probably a better time. And I know you're gonna wince when you hear that, but hear me out. So city council meets 4 times a month, right? And what you might want to consider is actually doing that as well. Starting at 7 o'clock, meeting 4 times a month. You'd be surprised that you are not here any later than you think you're gonna be here, because you're splitting that up. And that's what the problem is. Nobody really wants to be here past 3 hours, right? Because 3 hours, you're like, okay, time to be done. And that's what happens at city council. We actually make a vote on like 9:30 and to determine whether or not we have the stamina to keep going. But we meet weekly. I would actually recommend that you do that and bump the time to 7 p.m. If you're not going to do that, I know, right? But if you're not going to do that, keeping it at 6 o'clock is extremely more convenient for individuals that have to work. Today, I was running late, super late. I was talking to somebody and I didn't get the opportunity to eat. And obviously, as you know, I'm famished. And, you know, that's really, it's very helpful for us who want to be engaged in the process. And at the end of the day, that's what you guys want, right? You want people to be engaged in what you're doing because you want to represent us. And that's really appreciative that you're doing that. And I think that you changing the time, although it might be an inconvenience for you, it's really convenient for those that come here and who want to participate in the process of participation in our democracy that we have. That was a pretty damn good speech.
Thank you, Michael. Michael, for the record, we already do meet 4 times a month with committees.
Sorry.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to comment
Yeah,
on?
I'm just curious, why do you keep bouncing around to different schools? Why don't you just like settle on Spalding? Or Berry Town?
Well, you could
Or
actually,
school?
we could actually talk about that under the next agenda item if you'd like, because we're going to talk about that policy under the next agenda item. So that might answer your question.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And yes, go ahead.
I think even at 6 o'clock or push back to 7 is probably a better idea. I mean, like Michael was saying, 5:30 is impossible for a lot of, especially parents that might want to actually be involved with school and how the schools are run. Think about it, they get home at 4:30, 5 o'clock, they got to cook dinner for the kids around the door. It's not going to happen. And I'm sorry if the meetings run long because you have work to do, but this is a decision you guys could have made at any point. No one's forcing you to be here. You can just step out anytime you want. So keep that in mind. So I'm sorry that's hard work. And also, but you got to think about more people than just yourself. There's an entire community behind you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other members of the public who would like to comment? Okay, so we're going to move to board discussion, which means public comment is closed, just to be clear, okay? So I'm gonna start with the board members who are joining us virtually, and I'm gonna go in the order that I have written down because then I will be able to keep notes. So we're gonna just go around, and if you could please give your preference for which time you would like to start, and if you'd like to give a reason why, I'm sure the board would love to hear it. If you'd just like to give a time, that's fine as well. So Renee, could you go first?
I'm fine with either 5:30 or 6. Either one is fine. I would, and at some point, I do think that we might want to consider revisiting the listening sessions that we had talked about doing. And that might help our procedural meetings go along a little quicker while also giving people an opportunity to share their feedback.
Okay, thank you. Juliana?
I'm a little intrigued by the 7 p.m. meeting time, and maybe we should follow City Council and the Select Board and go to 7 p.m. on Tuesday.
No, no, wait. That's not what I meant.
Oh, sorry. Public comment is
No.
closed. Thank you, Juliano. I'm writing that down. Are you 100% serious, or are you just ribbing Michael?
No, I'm thinking about it, but I'll go with the majority of the board.
Okay.
That's not fair.
Chris.
I think, Josh, you often seem to be pointing to me whenever I bring up something about concerns about time, and I'm not going to quit the board. So anytime you bring that up as like, you don't have to be here, I won this seat, and I'm staying on the board. So I'm not quitting. So if you hope for that, that's not happening. Paul, I think your comment about that you went to 5:30 because you had one meeting a month and you hoped to be done in 4 hours. We're having 2 meetings a month, and we're sometimes here 4 and 5 hours. So that's actually double the amount of meeting times of why you changed it to 5:30. So just as a note of yes, those 5-hour meetings are real. And I think one thing that we've pointed out or that has come up is after a certain amount of time, especially when we have executive session and we're bringing administrators in, or bringing Chris in, or staying until 10, 10:30, 11 at night, we're discussing very important matters in executive session, and people are kind of glazed over at that point after a 5-hour meeting. And so those are some of the reasons, and also for consideration of our administrators that have to also be to work very early the next morning, and keeping them at meetings until 10:30 and 11. That's just something that I've thought about as well. So, if we keep it at 6, I'm not going to quit the board. It's fine. I prefer 5:30, and that's fine for me to prefer that.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Sarah? I came with a little data because we're going to discuss this. We've had 7 regular board meetings. I took out the special meetings that we have for board retreat and a special meeting we have for board interviews.
Can you speak up, sir?
Sorry. The average length of our board meetings since March 15th has been about 3.5 hours. Some are longer, into 4 hours. We haven't reached 5 yet, at least not since March. Thankfully, I would prefer to go to 5:30. I guess that's really my selfish behavior right there. But I'm okay with 6 too.
Okay. Alice?
5:30 is difficult for me because I work in Berlin and leave anywhere between 5:15 and 5:30 and have to make special arrangements if that's the case for a 5:30 meeting. So I much prefer 6 o'clock.
Okay. Thank you. Nancy?
Yes. So this is the reason that sometimes our meetings are long, is because we keep revisiting stuff that we've already voted on. I think we voted on 6 o'clock a couple of months ago. To me, it seems that we have better issues, more important issues to talk about than a 30-minute window. I think keeping it 6 o'clock makes it easier for the parents that have children that want to get them something to eat, including myself, and gives me travel time to get here. I think it's much more important to meet in person. I understand meeting virtually. I have to do it once in a while. But if we're complaining about times of the meeting, I think we need to figure out how to best use our time and not keep revisiting stuff that we've already decided 2 months ago.
To be fair, when we decided it, it was contingent on the discussion.
Well,
Thank you,
I mean, here we are, we're making our meetings longer, so leave it at 6.
Okay. Tim?
Well, as a person who constantly has to Google Meet this, you'll see me counting money and waiting on customers. I don't actually close till 6. So lucky me today, I have a staff person that can be there, but 6 works better for me.
We welcome you at 6:30.
Oh, wow, pluses.
Okay, thank you. Terry?
As a small business owner, 5:30 is difficult for me, right? I'm work for myself, so when I have to leave and what I do to come to time to come here early, it impacts my livelihood. So 6 is better for me. 7 would be better, although I understand it's not good for people, so I'm okay with that. But
I go
6
to 8.
6 p.m. would be good.
Okay. So it looks like there are 1, 2, 3, 4 people that would prefer 6, 2 people that prefer 5:30, 1 person that prefers 7 p.m. on Tuesday,
No.
and 1 person that is fine with 5:30 or 6. So, and in all fairness to Giuliano, he said that he would go with whatever the majority of the board said. So there, I'm not sure if you want to make a motion. I guess we have to make a motion because we have to discuss the next item and if we're going to change it or if we're going to leave it. So I will, Andrea, I knew Andrea was going to chime in. Andrea?
Yes, you knew I was going to chime in. The board already voted on this, so you already have a vote on record. So technically, we shouldn't even be holding any discussion tonight unless someone made a motion to change it or whatnot. But now that the discussion is said and done, if you're staying at 6 o'clock, you do not need to vote. You already voted on this. This would actually be reconsidering a vote.
Well, no, I'm saying because we're going to do first reading of board meetings, agenda preparation and distribution, we could change it with that particular policy. But we don't necessarily need a motion in this 7.1 is what I think, the way that I'm understanding it. Is that correct?
That is correct, because the board already voted to meet at 6 o'clock. And if there's not going to be any change to that, then you don't need to hold any vote. You've already voted on this.
Right. So what I'm saying is we've had our discussion and now we're going to move to 6.3, which is the first reading of board meetings, agenda prep and distribution. And if it sounds like the majority of the board is okay with staying at 6 p.m., although some people would prefer 5:30, it sounds like the people who would prefer 5:30 are okay with 6. So it doesn't sound like we will be changing the time, that we will just be discussing locations with regard to 8:20. Okay, so with that, we will move to 6.3, which is the first reading of 8:20. And it's the first reading because we have changed locations. Because we have added the C building to our rotation of buildings. Would you like me to talk about this?
You can.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the only reason I'm not going to present the policy. I'm just going to explain a little bit about what the reasoning was behind the rotation to hopefully answer questions that people might have. And then I will open it up and I'm sure people have opinions about it. So the reason that the board originally, and this board didn't originally, the new BUUSD board originally adopted this policy. We decided to move from one school to the next is for a variety of reasons, but most importantly, we were encouraging administrators to attend those meetings, so principals would be able to attend the meetings when we were in their building. And in addition to that, we were hoping that we would also have student presentations or be able to have students and families be more comfortable in the building that their student attended, so that they, if we were always at Spalding High School and it was, you know, a third grader from Berrytown, that might be very intimidating and difficult, and where do I go? And they know where the library is at Berrytown, so they could attend a meeting fairly easily. So our hope was that we would have more students be able to participate, as well as families who were more comfortable with their local school. As well as have administrators be present when we were in their building. So that is why, that was the original thinking behind why it was rotating. And with that, I will let Chris explain why this policy is here for you for first reading.
You will see in your packets A20, and the things that are crossed out are replaced by the new things that are going in. So instead of just having the location of Berrytown, Berry City, and Spalding, now every fourth meeting also includes the C building, and issues around confidentiality were explored, and it's fine for us to meet there. And you'll also see that we have crossed out the 5:30 and replaced it with the 6 p.m. start time. Although I noted, this maybe is fine, but it says that regular meetings will be held on the second Thursday of the month, with a second meeting on the fourth Thursday of the month as necessary. And currently, I don't know if we'd call it as necessary as much as it's just standing meeting. So I don't know whether we want to keep it, we're just calling those as necessary, or we want to change that to be that the standing meetings are the second and fourth. And everything else is the same as the current, as presented here. One question I had, and Carol, maybe you know this, is under agenda distribution. It says the superintendent shall ensure that the agenda is posted in the municipal clerk's office and 2 other designated physical locations in the municipality. Are the agendas posted physically someplace else, like in the school buildings, or I know online they are?
I believe so, and Tina
It's like a break room.
facilitates that.
Something where they put
I
the,
think so.
Okay.
like a coffee room or something.
So would Tina be the person if I wanted to know for sure, like where
Yes.
is that posted, just to check to make sure we're following the policy? I could easily email her to ask.
Andrea probably could answer.
Andrea?
Yes, in your reorganization meeting in March, you actually, I believe it's part of the voting, it was indicated that where the agendas will be posted, including every school and at the supervisory union and at the city and town clerk's offices. So it is documented, and you post in, you know, more places than you need to.
Thank you. Yeah, and I also noted that it says that the agenda will be distributed to board members 3 days prior, and we generally get about a week. So that's nice to have that extra heads up. And that's pretty much it. Thank you, Andrea.
Okay, so are there any members of the public who are joining us online that have a question or comment?
Sarah Hellman?
Sarah?
So I am wondering if you have found that since doing these rotations that you have increased student participation and administrator participation for these board meetings. And then I have a follow-up.
Yeah, unfortunately, the last few years we've been virtual, so we haven't really been rotating very much. But I will say, in my experience, in my opinion, and other people could speak to it, when we went from school to school, we did have administrators present, and we did have student presentations, and they were awesome. They were great.
So I'm sort of torn, because I think on one hand it's great for the school board members to be in the different schools and environments and see the things that are posted on the walls and whatnot. But on the other side of that, for a community member, I think maybe it might be better to have one central spot where the meeting is held, so there's no confusion and, oh, I went to the wrong building and whatnot. So that's just my thoughts.
Thank you. Anyone else virtually that would like to ask a question or has a comment? Okay, hearing none. Anyone here in person? Michael?
No,
Oh,
it's fine.
go ahead. William, go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, you mentioned about the meeting lengths being so long. You have the list of executive session. You could always have the executive sessions at a different time from your regular meetings, so that you weren't here you weren't here until 8 o'clock, and the administrators who were participating in the executive session could participate at a different time. I'm looking at the section on agenda preparation, and I do have a concern here because it says that the inclusion of items on proposed agendas will be at the discretion of the board chair and the superintendent. There may be times when the board chair or the superintendent are not able to be at the meeting. So I think you might want to include or vice chair or designee on that portion in the event of the chair's absence. And I'm just wondering if the superintendent is consulting with the other members of the board about agenda items.
Well, I mean, I can't speak for the superintendent. Maybe other board members could answer your question, and I do consult with the superintendent, but I'm the board chair, so.
Well, we do have an opportunity, Mr. Probert, for future agenda items, for anything that members of the board might see as either imperative or interesting. So I think that it does give us the opportunity to have that input.
And you can always add items to the agenda.
I do know it's an interesting thought about the executive session. I know some boards actually hold executive session first, so that everyone maybe is as fresh as they might be, and then the meeting begins after that. So definitely, there are creative options.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
Okay. So one, that's a great idea. Executive sessions, like not on the nights for the school board meetings though, but maybe off on a different night.
Actual location, night at 7.
Sure, Tuesday nights for executive sessions is fine. That doesn't count towards my people. So location, right? That's what we always hear. And the best location would be Spalding High School, because that's where everybody ends up anyway. And it's an easy thing for a person out on the outside that doesn't get the packet, has to go search for it and hope to find out where the right place is. Because if I'm running late to one of these meetings, just to get on, I have to, it might be a difficult time. It's difficult to find your agendas anyway. It is, I promise. It's like, I've done it. It doesn't do anything. But for convenience for the people that are coming to participate, it would be far better to be in one location. Now, if that's going to be here, Berrytown, C Building, or whatever, that's fine. I think the best location would be Spalding High School, because you've got the parking and it's super easy to get to the library because the door is right there. And, you know, we talked about administrators coming in. They get paid, and I know that sounds really cold to say that, but they do. They get paid to do the job, and they can go to Spalding High School. It really does come down to convenience for us, and it's convenience for you too. So you don't have to try to figure out, well, which way I'm going. And maybe you've never done that, but I get confused when they mess up the schedule anywhere else, and that's just my personal opinion. And I'm sure probably everybody else does.
Correct. Thank you. Yes.
So we started out, in fact, Sonia, you were the one that made the motion that we should have rotations at the schools and the reasons that you demonstrated. And my concern at the time was, which is why I voted against it, was that people have a habit of going to some sort of central place. I wasn't going to make any waves at the time, but right now, one of the key questions that constantly gets raised is, which building is the school board meeting going to be held? Now you're gonna add a fourth one, so now the mix is gonna be a rotation of 4 buildings. And then you have to look at the logistics of where everybody's coming from. I hate to say it, but the other gentlemen were right. Everything flows down the Spalding High School from all different directions, from Barrytown and in Berry City. It's central. Do whatever you want to do, that's fine, but that's just my opinion.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
So I think that we kind of stop moving around from building to building. I think that having some concentration on one particular building, so people understand that they can go to a particular building to go to a meeting is important. I know that sitting on city council, that we expect people to go to council chambers if they're going to visit our meeting. So it can kind of help that people know if they'd like to go to the school board, that on whatever night and day the school board meeting is, they should go to that particular location. I think it helps add community involvement because people that just don't have the time to figure out where things are, where the agenda is, makes it very difficult to find the agenda number one, but also sometimes to find the building. I know that I've had instances where I went to a finance committee meeting, it was supposed to be one building, it was at a different building because I just didn't look at the proper location. We had talked about, or the thing was talked about, having the different locations to make the students feel welcome. My child who's a student came to participate in a meeting a couple of weeks ago and felt that the board environment was hostile to the point where she left and went to the bathroom. I understand that some board members may not feel that way, and that's fine. But the way that my child felt is not something that just appeared out of nowhere.
Okay. Thank you. Any other public comments? Andrea?
Okay, so I'll weigh in. One of the reasons why it was determined that the meetings should rotate was there was extreme sensitivity to consolidation under Act 46. And then Superintendent Pandolfo felt that it would be in the best interest so that no community took offense, and to allow all board members who were not familiar with all the different schools to be able to spend some time in each of the schools. The decision was made to rotate, but keep the meetings at the same school each month, so that every month both meetings were in the same location, and that to avoid confusion for committees, all committee meetings would be held in one singular location. And the agendas are very easy to find. Everyone pulls the agenda up off from the BUUSD website, and the location of the meeting is right at the top of every agenda. Now, presuming people are looking at the agenda because to decide what's being discussed and if they want to attend the meeting, then the location should be very clear to them right at the top of the agenda. And I do think it's beneficial to let all board members spend some time in each of the buildings. And it was never a problem when we were doing it earlier. For some reason, recently, it's becoming an issue, and I'm not sure why, but that's my 2 cents on it.
Here. Prudence?
Hi, just as I'm a teacher at Berry City Middle School, and as somebody who hopefully will have students come to the board, I really love the idea of rotating it like you guys have said. I think that the kids feel more comfortable if it's in their hometown school. And also I love the idea of the board seeing what's going on at all of the buildings. So that's just my humble opinion.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anybody else for public comment? Okay, so I'm not gonna make a motion. Well, we can make a motion if you want to make a motion to approve the first reading of the board meeting agenda prep and distribution. But if we decide to change things, then we'll have to change things on the fly. So would someone like to make that motion? Tim with a first and a second. Second from Sarah. So I'm going to go around and ask the board to just weigh in on keeping the locations as presented in the policy or moving to one central location because the some members of the public have expressed some interest in that. So Renee?
I think that I'd prefer to rotate. Just hearing from our teachers that say, you know, it might be helpful and bring our students in. You know, the kids are always ideally our priority. So I would say rotate.
Okay, thank you. Juliana?
Stay with the rotation.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
I appreciate the historical perspective from Andrea about the Act 46 and the consolidation and some of the reason behind the rotating. For my own ease, I think going to one place would be easier. And I like that all the committees are at Spalding. Those are all in one location. But I think for the reason of supporting the kids and supporting the idea of everyone getting to come to their own school if they want to do that, and not for my own feeling of what's more convenient for me so I don't have to look at the top of the packet, I would vote to go with the rotation also.
Okay. Sarah?
I am absolutely fine with the rotating locations. I've been, on different boards long enough that I remember having the student presentations, and it's always the students. They're always fantastic, and I agree that my child, for instance, would be much more comfortable coming here to present than she would be to go to Spalding. So that would be
okay. Alice?
I prefer the rotation, but I see a solution is that maybe it behooves us to expand our communication system to let people know where the board is going to be. There are public calendars in various newspapers. There are opportunities on radio stations, whatever it might be, to make it clear that the board meeting is coming up and where it's going to be, so that maybe someone's driving along in their car and they're hearing the announcement on the radio. It's much better to have that. So we might want to look into how we communicate where we're going to be and what we're going to be doing.
Yeah. Nancy?
Well, I like going to one building. It's predictable. People, when they hear a board meeting, they know it's going to be at one location. When I'm in these buildings, I'm not seeing too much. I'm not really seeing a lot of the building. I don't think that we have permission to really go around and see what's here. Now we've added another building, so it's going to be a little bit more paying attention to, when I get ready to go to a meeting, I purposely have to look again on that day to where it is, because I'm so focused on everything else in that agenda. As far as the kids, I think it's great, but I mean, since I've been on the board, I haven't seen a lot of children. I mean, I've seen more Spalding kids attend, which I think is great, and seeing them get involved. And I think if we wanted to spend time in the building, I think we could set up some time with the principals to maybe get a tour or see or meet with the kids or whatever. I just think it would be less confusing just to have it in one building, and we could work around those other niceties for each school and seeing that and meeting with the kids.
Okay. Rotation. Thank you. And Terry?
My preference would be one building, but I'm okay with rotation.
Okay, so it sounds like the majority of people are okay with the rotation. So I'm going to recommend that you just keep your motion as is, and I'm going to.
Before we end discussion.
Yes.
Do we want to remove the parentheses about a second meeting on the fourth Thursday? Because that is considered a regular meeting and not a special meeting.
Yeah, and I think that was just a carryover from when we were only having one meeting, and it just wasn't caught by anybody.
Yeah.
So,
Should we just change it to regular? I think during board organization, that's what we decided. too.
Yeah, Andrea?
Andrea's probably about to say.
You, many years ago, when you had singular schools, you sometimes had and a second meeting if necessary. But since even before consolidation, and definitely with consolidation, it was known that it would require 2 meetings. It was changed this year because some folks who were new to the board, I think, did not realize that the amount of work involved, you definitely would have to have 2 meetings. And yeah, we were always meeting twice a month for many years now.
So, it sounds like we should change the policy. It sounds like your recommendation, because our reorganization indicates that we have a second meeting, but this just makes it sound like if it's necessary, then it's more of a standing meeting. So can we change the language to just say regular meetings of the board will be held at the location as indicated in the table below on the second and third Thursday of the month, or second and fourth Thursday of the month?
And have that for the second reading the next time it comes back.
Yes. And is that okay, Tim? You were the first. Are you okay with that amendment? And Sarah second? Okay. So we will strike out on the second and fourth Thursday of the month, and then we'll just strike out the parentheses, and then it'll just say beginning at 6 p.m. Okay. And the other, Alice, to your point, I think we also we announced it on Front Porch Forum, and I was trying to find the announcement from the board meeting on Front Porch Forum in my emails, but I couldn't find it. And I wonder if we say which location it's going to be at, even in that, or because that might be helpful just to be very clear, instead of burying it in the agenda.
Special alerts.
Social media, yep, all of those things to make it easier. And for people who struggle with the rotation, take a picture of this policy that's in our packet, because it spells out where we're going to be unless something unusual is happening. So July is Berry Town, August is Spalding, September is Berry City, October is the C building, November, well, assuming that we pass this, November is Berry Town again, December Spalding, January is Berry City, February is C, March is Berry Town, April is Spalding, May is Berry City, June is C. And the only time we would change it is, last month we had an art show in the library at the same time that we were supposed to have a board meeting at Spalding. And so we changed it and we went to Berry Town, even though we were supposed to be meeting at Spalding. So that's a really easy way to keep track of where you should be going. But we'll try to be more, communicate better about where those meetings are in all of the postings that we make. So with that, all of those in favor of the approving this policy 820 for first reading with the amendments as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And Giuliano and Renee?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Nancy? Okay, Nancy is opposed. The first reading, the policy passes first reading, and it will be back on our agenda next month for a second reading. Andrea?
Are you going to let Tina know about the change, or do you want me to talk to her?
If you could tell her, that would be great, because as soon as I walk out of here, I'm not going to forget that we made the change, but I'll probably forget to communicate to her.
I will touch base with her, no problem.
Thank you. She usually watches the meetings, but if you give her a heads up, she maybe won't have to muddle through all of it. Okay, next is reports, and we have taken 8.1 for the superintendent's report off of the agenda for tonight. And so 8.2 is building reports, and we have Berry City, Berry Town, Spalding, C, and CVCC. And I'm just checking they're all in your packet. Yes. Are there any public comments regarding building reports? Yes.
Yes. Is there anybody here from Berry City Elementary School? to give the report?
No, these are just written reports. Yeah,
You know it.
yeah,
Thank you, though.
yeah. Yeah, someone's not always here, and unfortunately, you know,
You don't have to explain this, Sonia. I'm just being a jerk.
yeah, okay.
We all know I was being a jerk. It's okay.
Okay. The nudging. Okay, so are there any questions about any of the reports? Is there anybody who would like to highlight anything on any of the reports? Yes.
Say that, you know, for all of my frustrations with the school system, and there are many, I came to the Berry City Step Up, you know, and for those of you who don't know, I have a special needs child, and it was her team has done a remarkable job with her. I mean, my child walks we live 2 blocks that way, and she'll walk like a mile to Dunkin' Donuts in her walker with no fear. And it's just like, wow. Now, she was also the child that got stuck in the elevator a few weeks ago, and it's hot drama. But, you know.
Were there any donuts in there?
No, we had to call the fire department.
Oh, gosh. Oh.
But I will say that her team has done a phenomenal job with her, and just the fact that she just has no fear, and she is a delightful child. She is by far the easiest one in the world. It's just whatever, okay. So that's a good thing. Awesome. But they've done a great job with her, and the step up ceremony was nice too.
I was gonna comment on that as well, because I was here the night Tim was here, and the things that they said about your daughter were amazing, and just the kindness he felt coming off.
Oh, she is one of the sweet. She's not my child.
And I'm laughing because when I was in 7th or 8th grade at Berrytown, I got stuck in the elevator there. So apparently it's not just here.
Well, she got stuck at the one in the Blanchard block.
Oh, down there.
And it did just get stuck. The lights went out. It did.
Oh, poor thing.
But she was in there for the fun, so she called me.
Yeah, I didn't have that.
Oh, dear. Well, thank you, Tim and Sarah. Anyone else want to highlight anything from the report, or?
I'll also make a comment that the Spalding graduation was quite amazing and very touching.
Mhm.
And, you know, we've had a lot of conversation about how maybe some of the students in this district aren't being served as well. But I think anybody who attended that event could see firsthand that we are doing very, very right things in some instances. A lot of those children are just going on to amazing things, and it was overwhelming.
Some are being served very well. It's usually the kids that have the parents that are really fighting for
them. Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to comment on anything regarding board reports? Or I'm sorry, building reports?
Yeah, I'll say something. So we shouldn't say anything on Chris, because Chris included 2 reports, one in the addendum, one in the packet. We shouldn't address either of those. So we're going to take both of them next time.
Yeah, I think that would be best because he's not here to answer questions or.
Okay. Okay. I will say I also went to the Spalding graduation. I was very, very moved for sure. That was my first Spalding graduation. My kids just finished their freshman year at Spalding, and it was definitely, I had no kids graduating, and I was totally emotional as they were all coming in, doing their thing, and it was even, and the band playing, you know, all the music. It was wonderful. It was just so great. And kudos to everyone who helped put that on, because it went off seamlessly, even with a last minute change to being indoors instead of outdoors. I also wanted to say in the C report, I really appreciated the information on kids who were, what they've done to get kids to meet the graduation requirements, kids who are passing their driver's ed, their youth employment specialists, and all the things around that. That was some really nice information to hear about how those kids are doing, and it felt really impressive to see all of that. And I liked what they had to say about student attendance and how their providing transportation, getting kids to school has improved many factors. And I know transportation to the high school has been talked about a million times before, but that sort of thing comes up too when we think about graduation rates and about success of kids getting to school. Not everybody can just get to Spalding easily without any transportation. So seeing that the C program with some of the most vulnerable kids in the district and that transportation has made a huge difference in their success, I think that's no small thing to overlook. And I was glad that they highlighted that.
Great. Anyone else? I just want to chime in. I also went to the Spalding graduation. I came to one night for Step Up Night here at Berry City. I attended the Berry Town Step Up Night, and I attended virtually the award ceremony for CBCC. And we have a lot of great things happening and a lot of great students who are either graduating or stepping up or moving on, and a lot of great staff. I think the thing that I kept hearing over and over was just the commitment of our staff to our students and really knowing their students and knowing their kids. And I thought that was really great. And I just, I'm glad to be able to, that we, I think a lot of people were glad that we are back to some semblance of normal and that we can have these ceremonies and celebrate our students. So I'm glad that I was able to go to them. My only wish would be that the sound system at the Berry Auditorium, and I'm looking at you, Michael, because you're in the city, is really makes it very difficult to hear. And I've gone to multiple 8th grade step up nights there, and I kind of snuck in and sat in the back, and it was really hard to hear. And I know, Nancy, you were there, and I don't know where you were sitting. I hope you were sitting closer because it was hard to hear in the back. But it was a lovely ceremony, and I felt bad that the kids had to be inside, but it was lovely. The parts that I could hear were absolutely lovely. So next on our agenda is the CBCC SD board report, and I know you probably do not have anything new to report, but I have it on there as a placeholder because I don't want it to be forgotten the next month when we do board report.
Right.
Reports to the board.
We're still, just in general, we're still finding our feet. We're getting organized and doing what needs to be done as we move forward.
Well, we look forward to an official report from you from your first official meeting as an actual school district next month.
August, actually. We met on Monday.
Oh.
So that we would not be meeting in July. So
Okay.
no July meeting.
Okay. So no.
August 1st.
We will look forward to a report.
We'll come in our truck.
Perfect. The next up is Finance Committee. Nancy, would you like to give us an update?
Yes, I would be happy to. Yes, we had kind of a boring meeting. It wasn't real exciting, but we got a lot of stuff talked about. We talked about the ESSER updates. We reviewed the expenses and line items and what has been spent. We talked about the summer projects that need to be done. Don't know if they'll be done, but we're waiting for the facilities meeting as on July 25th to get some costs around those projects. And then once that has been kind of tailored down, we should be able to figure out what projects are going to be done. We looked at the fiscal year 22. We reviewed different items because we're trying to prepare ourselves for the upcoming budget. And I just want to make mention that the July 21st meeting is not going to happen. We rescheduled it to August 9th.
Great. Any questions for Nancy? Okay. Next is facilities. Juliana, would you like to give us a quick briefing?
Sure. We discussed the granite benches and planters. Those have been put off for a while, but the local granite manufacturer has stated that they're going to start working on those and should be out by the beginning of next year, school year. We had a discussion with Eric Lafayette from EEI. He just kind of recapped what we had discussed at our last board meeting and just answered a few questions, but we're waiting for his report to come, and we'll discuss that at our July 25th meeting. And then we discussed the electric buses. Both buses were up and running, and we will discuss before the start of the school year how the buses will be running for each school.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Giuliano?
Yes.
Yes.
Giuliano, I sent you an email, but I don't know if you got it or not, but I was wondering about the dirt piles that are over by the baseball, softball field that the girls play on. There's been a pile of dirt over there, and when watching the games, it was just dusty. And now I see there's more dirt there. Is there a plan for the dirt, the piles of dirt that are there?
Those dirt piles have been there for decades. They've slowly grown, and due to the brush removal, Jamie's going to have someone completely clear that out. And I don't know the fate of those. I'd like to see those disappear too.
Yeah, because it was, I mean, when people were driving by on the dirt, I mean, you couldn't even see the game. It was so bad. But anyways, all right, thank you for that.
Okay. Any other questions for Giuliano? Okay. Well, I'll have Giuliano get in touch with you, Michael, or Jamie. Next is policy. Chris, I don't think you guys met.
We met in May. We didn't meet. Our meeting was supposed to be this week, and we didn't meet. But one thing I did want to say is one of the things that we've been discussing, as I mentioned earlier, as the VSBA changes their policies for what is required, what is amended, what is rescinded, there hasn't always been information about why that is. And so it's hard for the committee to take on some of those issues, especially a change like, well, why did they change it? Like if it's not obvious from a statute or a law change or that sort of thing. And so Chris has given them some feedback, and he said other superintendents were also giving feedback. And so they have been addressing that. I don't know if people saw that in some of the VSBA updates, that they are going to be giving more regular information as changes happen, so that boards and committees know how to interpret those things. One of the things we talked about at the last meeting was a new recommended policy, F27, which is communicable disease mitigation measures for students and staff. There was a lot in there that seemed reactive to our situation coming out of COVID, that addressed things like vaccinations and other mitigation measures. But there was no information about who wrote this policy. Like, were doctors involved? Like, what is the science that you're basing this on? And so the committee unanimously said, like, we're not doing anything with this right now. We need a lot more information before we could bring this to a board or do any work about if we're ready to present or think this is something that the BUUSD would adopt. So hopefully over time they'll be doing more of that, and that will help us know how to best tackle that work in an ongoing way.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions for Chris? Yes.
So I want to thank you for not just for giving the pushback. Is there a way for members of the public to say that's the policy? I don't have one in mind, but is there a way to do that?
You know, there are policies that come out of the VSBA that we look at to adopt and consider, and then there are local policies that we are free to, you know, create with our legal counsel, et cetera. So in terms of like suggesting, like, I think we need a policy about X and Y, you know, and anyone can do that, I suppose, but I think we would probably first look at where or how does that fall under any existing policies, either that we already have adopted or that exist with the VSBA, and have we not adopted for some reason, et cetera.
Thank you.
Okay. Curriculum committee, Renee?
We didn't meet.
Okay. Thank you. And negotiations?
We have not met since the update I gave at the last meeting. Okay, we're hoping to begin negotiation committee meetings early in the coming school year with the new contracts coming up, and being proactive with them.
Yeah, perfect. So now we'll move on to other business roundtable, and I will go around to and start with, are there any members of the public that would like to speak to other business roundtable? Yes.
Sure. We heard about the issues with the student here. I'm wondering if we might want to look into having a disciplinary committee where we're looking at disciplinary issues at the various schools. And that would be something that doesn't really fall into any of the other committees, but to get an understanding of what's going on, I think it would also be something that would be appreciated by some of the members of the public who came tonight.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah, I emailed Jeff Bergeron and Steve McKenzie about the sound system at Berry. I thought you said the opera.
No, not the Opera House, the auditorium. Thank you. Very much appreciated. I think that was a suggestion actually that someone made on some social media post about what we should do with ARPA funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see, and that's.
So that might be a great way to spend some money for a building that's,
Instead of a consultant.
well, we won't get into that because I'm sure we all have opinions about that. I know I do, but anyway.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll go to the board members. Renee, do you have anything for other business roundtable?
No, thank you.
Okay, Juliana?
Nothing.
Okay, Chris?
I know we'll talk about it when Chris is here next time, but I just wanted to highlight the very robust looking summer program that was in one of his reports, and just looks like a lot of good stuff for a lot of kids, and I look forward to hearing more of that and more about that in our next meeting.
Okay, Sarah?
Yeah, I want to address comments that were made during our last round. I didn't address it at the time because honestly it caught me a little off guard, which was most likely the intention. And I thought about addressing it privately in an email, but because the comments were included in our meeting minutes and are a matter of permanent record, I figured it warranted a public response. Board members are allowed to socialize and be friendly outside of board meetings. A lot of us have been involved with the board or our schools or districts for some time, so we've developed friendly relationships with other people. It should not be insinuated that to see any of us chatting with others outside of a board meeting, that it means we're conducting board business. So to drop a random ball like that in a public forum is damaging to our relationships with the public and as a cohesive board. Further, and speaking for me personally, not other board members, since I am a woman and I routinely lead these meetings late at night and in the dark in seemingly empty parking lots, I would say I'm quite agog at being made to feel intimidated or as though my movements are being watched, and I don't really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh. Alice? No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. Nancy?
Yes. So I would like to make a comment about the Berrytown. Can I talk about Berrytown graduation? I mean, the roundtable is for whatever I want to talk about, right? Sure. I went to the Step Up Berrytown, which was at the auditorium. I had front row seat. It was great. I heard everything. Kids did a wonderful job. There was one student there that I've known since she was little. Shy thing, never said a word the whole time I knew her, and she got up there and made a speech, and I was flabbergasted. She did a super duper job. I did go to the Spalding High School graduation once I got through the door, and that was great. It brought back a lot of memories for me because I graduated there as well. And I thought all the kids, you know, it was just a very good thing. The band did a great job. I thought Brenda Waterhouse did a good job. I thought everybody that got up there spoke. It was great. It was just, it was kind of emotional for me too. I'd also like to make special mention to the Spalding High School baseball team, champs. I love baseball. I think they did a great job. Also the lacrosse girls team. I think they've done a wonderful job. The other thing was, I think that was it. Yeah, I think that's it. Yes.
Great. Thanks, Nancy. Jim?
Nothing.
Terry?
You're tired. It's
I'm
after 8. I would just like to also congratulate the graduating class and all the students at Berry City and Berry Town that are stepping up, as well as the baseball team. That was what a wonderful way to end the year. That was pretty cool stuff.
Yes.
Exciting. It was fun to be down on Main Street when they came through and all the fire trucks and people taking pictures and blowing horns. It was pretty neat. I also had the opportunity to spend an afternoon with Jason Durner up at the C building. Since coming on the board, I honestly had no clue really what goes on up there. So I scheduled some time and went to spend an afternoon with him. And oh my goodness, it was awesome. What a cool place. Amazing stuff getting done up there. Certainly something that we should be celebrating.
Awesome. Thank you. I also want to congratulate Spalding High School baseball. They did an amazing job, and we are so proud of them, as we are of all of the athletic teams. And I mean, all of our kids are amazing, and you know, they're all doing their best and trying hard. But we are especially proud of our baseball team for achieving a very high standard. So thank you, or congratulations to them. I also would like to publicly apologize for losing my cool with Stacy Hubble and asking if she was going to leave. I get overwhelmed. I am very flustered when there are this many people, and it feels quite honestly like like people are just like, it's like a mob almost. And so sitting up here trying to run a meeting, it can be difficult. So my apologies. I know she and her family are going through a very difficult situation, and I apologize for being unprofessional. And I wish she was still here to hear that. And I'm not sure how I can reach out to her, but those are my feelings about that. I also would like to ask board members and remind board members, if you, the way that we can hopefully try to work better as a team is to evaluate ourselves. It's kind of like when you are evaluating your own self and recognizing like maybe you need to read more or drink more water or walk more. You have to evaluate yourself first to recognize where your challenges might be. And unless we can all get on board with evaluating ourselves, we might not be able to start rowing in the same direction. So I would encourage you after this meeting to please complete the evaluation that I send to you. I can see who completes them, so I know if you haven't completed them. So please, everybody complete them so that we can get some sense of who. I can't see what you say, I can just see that you have completed it. And so I would ask that everyone on the board please complete the evaluation regarding our board meetings so that we can find out where are the issues that we might be having and maybe get some direction and training from an outside party to help us to overcome some of the obstacles and challenges we might be facing. So with that, we will move to future agenda items, which is item number 10. And we will definitely have all of our regular beginning of the agenda items. We will continue to have new hires. We could keep our fingers crossed that we'll have 21 professional resumes in our packet for the next time, Carol. We could all go home and manifest that. And we will also have a second reading of A20. We've tabled the superintendent's report, so we will have the superintendent report. In addition, in the parking lot, we will have annual designation of HHB report recipients policy, which is hazing, harassment, and bullying. That's what HHB stands for. Special education summative report, which will be in July. RFP approval for C vehicles will be in July. The staff exit survey report update will be in executive session in July. We also, it looks like because we're doing quarterly reports, the enrollment and home study report numbers should be in our July packet as well. And I think there will be definitely a discussion about how we can address some of the concerns that we were hearing during public comment regarding safety and students and student behavior. And I'm not sure what that will look like. I want to have a conversation with Chris Hennessy before I can say, oh, we're going to do this. And but I think it's certainly I've heard it, and I think that but I also recognize, you know, what can we do as a board, and how can we support our administration as well as our families and our students. So, Chris?
Just a note on that. Like, I think, you know, having the HHB report touches on some safety issues, but also I think that we should have a very explicitly worded safety like item, so that anyone who wants to talk about that knows that this is not a policy discussion. This is safety.
Right.
To make sure that folks know that we hear them, we're being responsive, we want to dedicate, and perhaps that is given a chunk of time,
Right.
Because it seems to be, it is the most pressing thing right now that we're hearing over and over.
Right.
So just to give it its due and make that a prominent feature on the agenda.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that. With what we heard earlier last week, I did take a look, and we as a board do have a policy at C20 on disciplinary action on behavioral issues within school. It basically states that as a we have this policy, but it's the principal's job to implement a plan in detail, actual disciplinary behaviors. I didn't check the other schools, but you can see various cities is right in their handbook on the website. I honestly said it was last updated in 2017, so I don't know if we can get that in July, but I would kind of like an update from each of the school administrative teams, just kind of hopefully that they'll take a look at that over the summer, and if they do have these procedures in place, that they are being followed.
They are, that's the problem.
And I think so a question, right? So if they're not, why not? What do they need? What do they need from the community? What do they need from the students? What do they need from the staff? What do they need from the board? Like, I think we need to explicitly drill down onto these subjects and find out what are action items that we can say to groups of folks, including us, including parents in the community. This is what we need from you. We need, when the school blah, 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 you do this. This is what we need from the board. We need you to respond in this way. Because I think if we just are saying like, it's not being followed, that doesn't actually help us make progress toward like what needs to happen for it to be followed for everybody.
What Michael referenced, when we had, as a Barry City board, we had our assistant principal come in, and he talked about the PBI's system, which had a factor of restorative justice. It wasn't completely based on that, but having that kind of presentation, I think, was helpful. So I don't know if we could kind of get something like that going, but I think it would. And I know things have been crazy the past few years with COVID, but coming out of it, I think a cohesive plan from our administrators need to create a cohesive plan that they're willing to implement and that we can expect within the handbooks to be followed.
And in one of the reports from Chris also talks about a task force with the police department and meeting monthly, and like there's a lot more details probably that should come out about that.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Renee's raising her hand.
Renee?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the restorative practices thing, in that typically most schools, that's usually an element, but that's not the only response that a school has. Typically there's some sort of, the restorative process if both students are open to try to repair the damage that's been done, or between a teacher and a student, or whoever it is. But there's also typically some other sort of, for lack of a better word, consequences. Like it's not like typically a student, is really aggressive and ends up hitting another student, and they sit down and have a conversation, and that's the end of it. Typically there's other stuff that happens. And so it might be helpful if at the next meeting, when those conversations are happening, kind of what are the different responses that happen in the school. And obviously there's no one clear-cut answer. It's like if this happens with these two students, this is the absolute, this is what happens, right? Just like in our laws, they say, you can get 6 months to 2 years of jail or whatever. So there's no cut and dry for anything because it's all about, the different circumstances. But if in talking about the HHP stuff, if there could be some explanation as far as these are some of the different things that we do, that might help people understand better about what's going on. And certainly, I mean, I don't know what's going on in the schools, obviously, I don't work there. But it might help people understand better the different responses as to what's happening, and as well as what they're allowed to legally share and what they legally can't share. So even if there are things happening, the students that it happened to might not know exactly what happened because they can't share it out. So maybe just some explanation as far as what are the processes and what are the different things that can happen.
Okay. Renee. Andrea?
Just gonna throw this out here, and I can go back and pull out the minutes and send them to the board members. But when Pietro Lynn addressed the policy committee and discussion of procedures was happening, he made it very clear that the board needs to read every procedure, know every procedure, and know that the procedures are being followed. And that seems to be where we have been falling short because we don't have all the written procedures. I know they're working on them now, but Pietro made it very clear that the board needs to know all the procedures and then see that they're being followed. So hopefully when you start reviewing them, you'll have a clearer picture of what's going on.
Okay, thank you. Any other future agenda items?
There's going to come a time that the board is going to have to evaluate the superintendent. Do we have solid in place goals and expectations that are evaluatable for the superintendent? Have we ever formed those?
I think we can go back and look at the process that we've used in the past, but if we want to add that to a future agenda to discuss.
I think that's really important because what has happened over the last couple of years with the COVID and the remote and not being in schools, it's become somewhat loosey-goosey. I want to say willy-nilly, but that doesn't work out very well. But so I think that our role as a board to establish those goals and expectations, because you can't evaluate someone on something that they don't know. They haven't been told. So it's our role as a board to set those goals and expectations, and then they become evaluable.
I think that it would be probably serve us best to maybe break that into a couple of,
right.
We could like see what are we currently doing and then how might we want to change that.
Right.
Okay.
And then the other thing, there are just some things hanging out there. One of the things that I'm concerned about as we go into a new school year is this sort of random fundraising and various classes choosing to raise funds or various purposes. And because it's late, I'm tempted to say the chicken fund. But, why do we have the chicken fund? If we have, why are we doing fundraising for the chicken coop? If that's in the budget, so I'd like to get that straightened out with what the fundraising is, so that everybody knows why individual classes or why particular programs are needing this extra funds that have to be raised. And the last piece is, I would really like to help the principals and the community to reconstitute the PTAs, because the PTOs in the past, I know Berrytown had a very strong PTO, and understandably it has become less. But I'd really like to have us as a board find out what they need and what we can provide to both our administrators and to the parents, so that that can get up and running again.
I think that is a great idea. I'm not sure if that's something that we would do, but I think we can explore who would be responsible for that.
Right, and encouragement. So if they need, I'm just drawing with straws here, but if they need a place in a building, a desk somewhere where the PTO can keep all their stuff, then maybe we could talk to the administrators about looking at that kind of support system for a PTO.
Okay. The other thing about independent fundraising is on our parking lot, and it says independent fundraising, and it's a bullet, so I can't tell you where it is, Alice, because it's not numbered.
Yeah.
Independent fundraising within buildings, summer building reports. So I've circled that as well because we only have one July meeting, and I don't know if that will be in our, because this is the second meeting of the month, and building reports usually come the second meeting of the month. So I'm not sure if that will be able to be ready for our first meeting in July, or if we'll have to wait till August, but I will try to figure out if we can get
Right,
that
and
sooner rather than later.
I think that's important because a lot of parents, grandparents, and this is where it actually came from, was from originally started me thinking on this whole thing, was the grandmother who, said that she didn't want to short her grandchildren, but in the state of this economy, she didn't have a lot of disposable income to participate in a fundraising activity. So I think we have to think about how we're doing that, how we're approaching that, and if there are things that we can support through our existing budget, then that would reduce the fundraising.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else from anyone else regarding future agenda items? Nancy? Yep.
I think you might want to put something on the agenda in terms of getting reports from the various schools in terms of when we're looking at disciplinary issues and what happened here in terms of the number of assaults that have happened at each school. Both student on student, and if there were any student on teacher or student on staff assaults. I think it would be helpful to have that information that would show that you're actually looking into this too, and would help allay some of the concerns that people have.
And I think also, just to piggyback on that, is that when events like this particular event happen, the rumor mill really grinds up. And having that information then allows us to see what is reality and what is just plain telephone. That people are playing telephone, and by the time it gets to the end, it's bigger than it actually is. But I'm not saying this particular issue with that, but there are other issues in schools that by the time they get out on the street, they're made to seem bigger than they actually are. But we still need to deal with them.
I'd agree that I just want to caution that we may want to consult with our counsel before we dig deep into something that has an open law enforcement investigation.
Yeah, no, we can't do anything like that, but I think some sort of report about, I think someone said something about you said PBIS.
Yeah.
We also used to get just reports about, there's all kinds of reports that have to get sent to the state. So we could get that kind of information regarding
the suspension, expulsion,
those kinds of,
that report, yeah.
So we could ask for some of that data just to understand what's happening in our schools.
I think we could track that procedure that's on the handbook. In the handbook, I don't know if you guys check that, but it's pretty specific. It has different, in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, in different levels. So.
Okay. All right, Nancy? Andrea?
I just want to wait till you're all done so that I can recap exactly. I thought you guys were done because I'm not sure exactly what is going to be on the next agenda and what you plan on putting in the parking lot. So if we can just clarify once you're done everything. And just as a side note, we're actually holding far too much discussion. We're actually starting to discuss the topics that we want to put on future agendas. And this is one of the reasons our meetings do go so long, is because we kind of veer off the trail we're supposed to be on.
Yes, thank you.
I would like to, all the people that came here tonight and spoke, Michael Beering, Mrs. Hubble, Jay Forcer, Josh Howard, Stacy Bolton, William Tolberg, Michael Boogan, Jeff Blow. Everybody has got a concern about what is going on at Berry City Elementary School and some overlapping to the other schools. So I want to have something on the agenda to really address what is going on. I know we can't discuss names or anything, but what I want to address is how we can respond to the community. I think we need to really strongly come up with a format. I think these people deserve it. They come here, they take the time to meet, they're supporting us, they're supporting the school, they're coming here taking time to find out what is going on, why can't we fix it, what are we going to do to make sure our kids are safe. I have looked at the policies and the codes of conduct for these handouts that Sarah was regarding to, and I just looked at a few of them. Went down through that, and they've got different levels, and I had to guess, and it's a guess, but I'm thinking they're not being followed. We can have all the policies and the safety measures in place, but if they don't follow them and stick to them, they're not going to matter. So I think we need to really look at those and make sure that we are doing what we have agreed to, and that's permitted. I like Mr. Tolberg's mention of a disciplinary committee. And I also like the having possibly a report of incidences. We don't have to have detail, but how many incidents are happening in a quarter or a month or whatever. And that should give us a kind of an idea of, what maybe we need to do or get a report, a more detailed report. What are the protocols for communicating to the community? And what I'm meaning is a woman asked, and she sent a request to you and Chris or whatever to add to the agenda, and it didn't get added for whatever reason. Is there any way that we can know what items are sent to you and the superintendent to be added to an agenda?
So do you want this to be on a future agenda, or do you want me
Yes,
to answer
I do.
your question?
No, I would like that on a future agenda.
Okay.
And let's see.
And I think along those is like the listening sessions, like
Yeah,
that sort of
okay,
falls
listen-
in a similar like category, and it's come up a few times. So I don't know how those like go together, but
if I'm probably saying
something like
stuff that's
that.
already been
No,
said,
no,
but
you're
I'm
not.
just-
You're
this
fine.
is stuff that I wrote down.
Yeah.
And let's see, a list of bio. Okay, that was what I was. And are we responding at all to the community members? And I've heard a lot of Jeff Blow, for one, ask a lot of questions, but I have no idea if he's being responded to. And if he is there a report that we can see if the response was sent to him and possibly what the response was, so that we're all in the know, and the fact that, okay, it's been addressed, and we don't all sit here and wonder. Sure.
Hearing, so what do you want to see?
And yes, exactly.
6 months. School's out.
Pretty sure. First second is a resolution.
So basically, communication with the community, I think we need to make that a priority along with looking at the safety of these students.
Okay. I've listed it all.
Excellent.
Anybody else for future agenda items? Renee?
I know I had mentioned it earlier, but I really think we should revisit the concept of having the listening sessions, so that we're really looking at maybe one board meeting where we're doing all the work, and then the other where we're listening and trying to get feedback from folks, because I think that that's really what people are looking for. And we had talked about doing it, and I thought we were going to pursue it, and we haven't really gone down that avenue. And so I think we need to talk about, structure, so that it's not just an attack session or an hour of somebody, but trying to figure out a way where people can have a space to talk.
Okay. Thanks, Renee. So Andrea, I have a very long list. What is going to end up on our next agenda? Quite honestly, the things that have July next to them should probably end up on the next agenda, but I can't say whether some of those things can be pushed and whether we should, after a conversation with Chris, if we feel like we need to dedicate, a good portion of the next agenda to a listening session. So I have this very long list of parking lot items or future agenda items, but obviously we cannot get to every single one of these future agenda items in our next agenda, in addition to the items that are already in the parking lot. So, we're going to have to prioritize and do our best. And I'm always trying to prioritize and, do what's best for us as a board and for our community. And so I'll have a conversation with Chris and we'll come up with the agenda and hopefully be able to meet the needs of, some of the suggestions that have been made from the board and the community. Because I recognize we have work to do, but also part of our work is hearing what the community has to say. And so we have to find a balance. Also recognizing we have one meeting in July. So we have to, there is work that has to be done in July. Andrea, I know that's not a definitive, and poor Tina will have no idea what's supposed to be on the next agenda, but I will have a conversation with Chris to hopefully be able to address that so she can build something. I'm sure he'll want to check in to see how the meeting went anyway. So I'll have that discussion with him about the best way to build the next meeting agenda. Okay, with that, we'll move on to next meeting dates. Our next regular board meeting is July 14th. It is at Berrytown Middle and Elementary School in the library. Our regular board meeting on July 28th has been canceled. And so the next meeting after July 14th will be in August. August 11th. Yes, August 11th. And with that, we are at adjournment. So I would look for a motion to adjourn. Alice? Second by Nancy. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. And those opposed, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
So Sonia, who is going to be getting the recording to me? Because lately I'm having a hard time getting recordings in a timely manner. The last board meeting, it didn't come out till like Monday or Tuesday, and I really needed to work on it over the weekend. So I'm just wondering where it's coming from. And usually it comes to both myself and Josh. And the finance committee, it just went to Josh. Then I had to wait for him to send it to me. And I was racing to get those minutes done so Tina could have them for tonight's meeting.
Well, I think the issue with the last meeting was Chris did some screen sharing and he needed to make sure that there was nothing he needed to scrub out because his email was in the background, and we needed to make sure there was nothing that was confidential or private information. And so that's why that was delayed. I don't know if there were any other times that may have happened as well.
Right, and I also should be receiving, I believe from Chris tonight, Chris Parker, the list of attendees who were physically present. And then there's also a listing that comes out with the recording that I used to get all the time of the electronic attendees. And lately I don't get that from Chris. I have to keep asking him for it. And he says, I thought I sent it to you. It's like, no, you didn't. And so, yeah, I'm having a hard time getting the information I need lately. So I just want to get that out there, and because I'm under time constraints as far as posting it, and I have to work these around other things, other commitments that I have.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I think it comes to Chris's email. That's like when I have recorded it, it comes to his email. So he's the only one that's able to, I think, send it along to you.
Okay, so is he going to be, is he gone, like not going to be available for several days? I don't know why, he's not here this evening.
Guys, can I just ask a quick question? Because we're still recording. Is this still part of the meeting?
No, we're adjourned.
Okay.
No, and you can go, Renee and Juliano. It's okay. I will check in with Chris to make sure that he gets you the recording. I'll make myself a note. And the list.
And the list, thank you.
Sure. Do you have to